Imagine sitting beneath the vast night sky thousands of years ago, stars flickering softly above as you gather around a crackling fire. A storyteller begins to speak, sharing tales of mighty gods, daring heroes, and mysterious creatures that feel both distant and strangely familiar. Greek mythology began just like this. Stories whispered from generation to generation, helping people make sense of the world, teaching lessons about life, and gently revealing truths about what it means to be human. These myths were never just entertainment. They became quietly woven into the very fabric of how humanity has understood itself for millennia. In these tales, gods live high atop Mount Olympus, heroes set out on impossible journeys, and ordinary people confront extraordinary challenges. The ancient Greeks looked to these stories to explain everything from thunderstorms caused by the powerful Zeus to the changing seasons, marked by Persephone's annual journey to the underworld. But beyond these explanations, mythology offered guidance about love, courage, wisdom, and fate, helping people understand not just the natural world, but themselves. You might not realize it, but these ancient myths quietly surround us, even today. When we speak of someone's Achilles heel, or describe a difficult task as Herculean, we're referencing these age-old stories, often without thinking about it. Greek mythology has left subtle marks on our language, literature, psychology, and popular culture, shaping how we think and communicate. In this video, we'll explore the fascinating world of Greek mythology together, from the very creation of the universe, through the adventures of gods and heroes, to the dramatic stories of humans who dared to challenge their fates. You'll meet Zeus, king of the gods, Athena, goddess of wisdom, Poseidon, lord of the seas, and heroes like brave Heracles, cunning Odysseus, and courageous Achilles. Along the way, we'll dive into epic quests, tragic romances, thrilling adventures, and quiet lessons that still resonate thousands of years later. As always, there's no need to focus on visuals or the screen. Think of this as a cozy storytelling session, ideal for relaxing, winding down, or simply letting your imagination drift as you listen along. Whether you're settling in for a peaceful evening, doing some work, or just curious about these ancient tales, feel free to get comfy, grab a snack, and let these stories gently guide you. So gather around the fire, so to speak, as we embark on this journey together, stepping into an ancient world filled with mystery, adventure, and timeless wisdom. By the end of our journey, you'll have explored Greek mythology from start to finish, and you'll understand why these captivating stories continue to quietly speak to us, thousands of years after they were first told. Let's jump in. Long before the first sunrise lit the sky, before the first wave broke on any shore, there existed only chaos. But this chaos wasn't the kind of chaos we might think of today. No wars, no disasters, no confusion, just an empty void, vast and silent, stretching endlessly into darkness. Imagine yourself back then, sitting around a small campfire on a quiet night, as an elder begins this tale, their voice low but clear, weaving together the very first story ever told. From this endless nothingness, something extraordinary began to happen. Out of the silence emerged the very first being, Gaia, the Earth Mother. She was immense, powerful, and alive in every sense of the word. She wasn't simply the ground beneath your feet. She was the spirit and body of the earth itself. As Gaia awoke, mountains rose from her form, valleys stretched out, and vast plains opened wide. She became the solid foundation of the world, patiently waiting for life to grow. But the earth was not alone for long. Soon after Gaia emerged, another being quietly formed from the darkness. Deep beneath Gaia herself, deeper than any cave or canyon, appeared Tartarus, a place so distant, so dark, it lay far beneath the earth. Tartarus was a shadowy abyss, hidden from sight, and forever separated from the surface world. Even to the ancient Greeks, its depth was unimaginable, its darkness absolute. It was a place that would one day imprison powerful beings, but for now, it simply existed, silent, hidden, and waiting. Gaia, however, still held within herself the desire to create and shape the world. From her own being, she brought forth Uranus, the sky, who spread himself endlessly above her. Imagine the first sky stretching out for the very first time, open, vast, and filled with quiet majesty. Uranus covered Gaia completely, sheltering her beneath a dome of infinite expanse, filled with stars, the moon, and all that we now see when we look upward at night. Earth and sky, Gaia and Uranus, existed together, forever joined yet always separated, partners in the earliest chapter of existence. Still, Gaia's creativity wasn't finished. Without a partner, she produced yet another child. Pontus, the sea. Waters began to flow, quietly covering large portions of her surface. The endless oceans stretched out from her form, calm and mighty at once, meeting the horizon beneath Uranus's watchful gaze. Pontus embodied the vast, unknown waters, an elemental being who existed alongside his mother Gaia, his presence ensuring that the earth was not simply dry land, but balanced by the power and mystery of the seas. Now, let's pause a moment to picture these primordial beings clearly, as the ancient Greeks might have. Gaia, the earth, firm and patient beneath your feet. Uranus, the boundless sky stretching endlessly above. Pontus, the endless sea surrounding you, powerful yet calm. And Tartarus, the dark abyss lying unseen and unknowable far beneath. These were not gods in the sense we usually think of them, living on Mount Olympus and interacting directly with humans. Instead, they were ancient, powerful beings who quietly shaped the very fabric of reality. These four, Gaia, Uranus, Pontus, and Tartarus, were among the first great powers of existence, each with their distinct realms. Gaia represented stability, the nurturing ground where all life would soon flourish. Uranus was infinite expanse, the realm of stars, planets, and celestial mysteries, forever out of reach, yet always present. Pontus was the endless ocean, deep and unknowable, surrounding and sustaining the world. And Tartarus was the quiet darkness deep below, the hidden place that held secrets none could fathom. Together, these ancient beings formed the world as the Greeks knew it, long before humans ever walked the earth. Each had a clear role, each quietly holding sway over a part of existence, bringing balance and structure from the emptiness of chaos. Sitting around our imaginary campfire, listening to this tale, we can sense why the ancient Greeks found comfort and wonder in these stories. This was their way of understanding where everything began: the earth beneath their feet, the sky above their heads, the ocean that surrounded them, and the mysterious darkness they could never fully comprehend. Now, with these primordial beings established, their stories would soon become more complicated, involving their offspring, conflicts, and new generations of powerful gods and heroes. But for now, our tale remains focused simply on this first act of creation. Gaia emerging from chaos, bringing forth Uranus, Pontus, and Tartarus, quietly setting the stage for everything that followed. These primordial forces were not worshipped or approached in quite the same way as later gods. They were more distant, powerful entities, respected, feared, and admired for their immense strength, but also mysterious and remote, seldom directly involved in human lives. Instead, they represented the essential building blocks of the world, giving context to everything that would later unfold. They shaped the cosmos long before gods, heroes, or mortals walked the earth. Their presence is felt quietly in every myth and legend that follows, underlying all future tales as the silent foundation on which the universe rests. And so, gathered around our ancient campfire, beneath a sky now filled with stars, we sit in quiet awe, imagining these beings, and how it must have felt to witness the world's creation unfolding for the very first time. This is just the beginning. There are many more stories to tell. but the mysteries of how the world first took shape, emerging slowly and silently from chaos, will always be among the most powerful and profound ever told. Long after the first beings emerged from chaos, Gaia, the earth, Uranus, the sky, Pontus, the sea, and Tartarus, the dark abyss, a new generation of powerful figures appeared. These were the Titans, mighty beings born of Gaia and Uranus, who came to rule over the early cosmos. Together, Gaia and Uranus brought 12 Titans into existence. Each Titan possessed immense power and had a unique role within the early universe. Oceanus, eldest of the Titans, embodied the endless waters that encircled the earth, his immense and winding rivers quietly nourishing every corner of the world. Hyperion was the brilliant Titan of heavenly light, illuminating existence with the sun's warmth, the moon's glow, and the gentle radiance of the dawn. Coeus, guardian of celestial wisdom, quietly watched over the mysteries of stars and constellations, while his brother Creus presided over the movement and positions of those celestial bodies, bringing order to the night sky. Iapetus stood as a symbol of mortal life and its trials, a representation of human endurance and resilience that would come to influence later generations. Then there was Cronus, the youngest of the Titans, whose quiet strength was matched only by his deep ambition. Alongside Cronus stood Rhea, gentle yet formidable, who embodied motherhood and fertility. Themis, guardian of divine law and order, whose wisdom would guide the very fabric of justice. Mnemosyne, keeper of memory, quietly ensuring that tales and knowledge would survive. Tethys, Oceanus's companion, who nurtured countless freshwater springs and rivers. Theia, whose gentle brilliance made precious metals and gems sparkle, illuminating the natural beauty of the world. Phoebe, who represented prophetic wisdom and the deeper truths of existence, illuminating the minds of gods and mortals alike. Yet among these powerful siblings, it was Cronus who held a destiny unlike any other. While the other Titans ruled peacefully in their domains, Uranus, their father and the ruler of the cosmos, looked upon his offspring with growing dread. Each child was strong, mighty, and full of potential, too much potential, in the eyes of the fearful sky god. Uranus, deeply unsettled by their strength, imprisoned Gaia's other offspring, particularly the mighty Cyclopes, one-eyed giants of incredible craftsmanship, and the formidable Hecaton Hyres, beings with 50 heads and 100 powerful arms, deep within Tartarus. Gaia, heartbroken and grieving deeply for the children trapped beneath her surface, suffered endlessly. Their imprisonment was a constant pain she silently endured, yet her sorrow soon hardened into quiet determination. Resolving to free her children and end Uranus's cruelty, Gaia crafted a weapon, a sharp, curved sickle forged from adamant, a substance so strong it could cut even a god. She approached each Titan in turn, imploring them to stand against Uranus and free their siblings. But each of them hesitated, fearful of Uranus's immense power. Only Cronus, the youngest yet bravest, agreed to take on this dangerous task. Accepting the sickle, Cronus prepared himself for the decisive moment that would change the cosmos forever. When Uranus next descended upon Gaia, Cronus was ready. Waiting quietly and hidden in darkness, he watched his father approach the earth. As Uranus extended himself over Gaia, Cronus swiftly struck, wielding the adamant sickle and wounding his father deeply. With this single act, Uranus was overthrown. His power and reign ended in an instant. As the defeated sky god fell away, he uttered a terrible curse upon Cronus, foretelling that one day Cronus would suffer the same fate, betrayed and overthrown by one of his own children. Ignoring this dark prophecy in the glow of victory, Cronus took command of the cosmos. His rule was powerful, authoritative, yet quiet and measured. Alongside his siblings, he ushered in the era known as the Golden Age, a time of peace, harmony, and abundance. Under his leadership, the earth provided effortlessly, crops flourished without human labor, rivers flowed gently and reliably, and the very world seemed tranquil and stable. Cronus married his sister, Rhea, whose nurturing spirit and quiet strength complemented his powerful yet anxious nature. Together, they oversaw an era where the cosmos thrived under gentle order, yet Cronus remained troubled by his father's ominous words. Haunted by the prophecy, Cronus became increasingly suspicious, always wary of the threat he believed his children might pose. Each time Rhea gave birth, Cronus, his heart darkened by paranoia, would immediately seize the newborn child and swallow it whole, imprisoning his offspring deep within himself, a place he believed no prophecy could reach. Rhea watched helplessly, her heart breaking each time her children vanished within Cronus's depths. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, all swallowed whole, their fates unknown, lost within their father's belly. But when Rhea found herself expecting another child, she resolved fiercely that she would protect this one at any cost. As the birth drew near, she secretly traveled far from Cronus's watchful eye to the distant island of Crete. There, in a quiet cave hidden among the rugged cliffs and shaded by thick forest, she gave birth to a son, Zeus. With her newborn safe, Rhea crafted a clever deception. Wrapping a smooth, heavy stone in swaddling clothes, she returned home and presented it to Cronus as their new child. Cronus, blinded by fear and suspicion, swallowed the stone without hesitation, satisfied he had once again prevented his father's prophecy from coming true. Meanwhile, Zeus was hidden safely away on the rugged slopes of Mount Ida in Crete, far from Cronus's watchful eyes. In a secluded cave tucked high among rocky cliffs and sheltered by dense forests, the infant god grew, tended carefully by the gentle goat Amalthea. Her milk nourished him, giving Zeus strength and vitality. Her care became legendary, so much so that her broken horn became the cornucopia, forever symbolizing abundance and prosperity. But Amalthea wasn't Zeus's only protector. To ensure Cronus would never hear the child's cries, a group of fierce warriors known as the Curetes took on a sacred duty. Whenever Zeus wept, the Curetes would clash their weapons, banging swords against bronze shields, creating a powerful cacophony that echoed loudly through the mountains. To an outsider, this racket appeared as a mere display of military practice or battle drills. Yet, in truth, each ringing clash of metal masked the infant's cries, shielding the hidden god from Cronus's relentless paranoia. Zeus thrived under this careful protection. As years passed, the small, helpless child became a formidable youth, strong and determined. His upbringing amidst Crete's rugged wilderness forged him into a capable and intelligent figure. Every day he trained himself, climbing steep cliffs and running tirelessly through dense forests. He learned from nature itself, studying the movements of storms, the strength of the wind, and the subtle changes of the sky. Even in his youth, he seemed destined to master the heavens, commanding the very elements around him with an instinctive ease. When Zeus finally came of age, fully aware of the grim fate awaiting his siblings, he began quietly plotting how to confront Cronus and bring justice to the imprisoned gods. But Zeus knew physical strength alone would never suffice. Cronus, after all, was powerful, cunning, and vigilant. To defeat him, Zeus needed wisdom, cunning, and subtlety, qualities he found in abundance within the Titaness Midas, a figure famed throughout the cosmos for her intelligence, cleverness, and resourceful insight. Midas quickly recognized Zeus's potential, seeing in him the leader who could finally overthrow Cronus's tyranny. Together, they devised a careful, intricate plan to rescue Zeus's siblings. Metis, expert in herbs and potions, crafted a powerful elixir designed to reverse Cronus's cruel deeds. This potion held the unique power to force Cronus to release the siblings he had swallowed, restoring their strength and form. With Midas's guidance, Zeus disguised himself, carefully adopting the humble appearance of a young cupbearer, innocent, loyal, and entirely beneath Cronus's suspicion. One evening, as Cronus sat upon his throne, surrounded by his Titan siblings, Zeus approached quietly, presenting his father with a goblet filled with sweet wine, cunningly laced with Metis's potent elixir. Cronus, suspecting nothing and believing himself secure, drank deeply from the cup. Immediately, a fierce pain seized him, racking his mighty form and forcing him into uncontrollable agony. One by one, he released Zeus's siblings: Hestia, the gentle goddess of the hearth; Demeter, wise protector of harvests; Hera, whose strength would one day rule Olympus by Zeus's side; Hades, destined lord of the underworld; and Poseidon, future king of seas and storms, all now fully grown, powerful, and prepared for vengeance. United at last, Zeus and his newly freed siblings swore a solemn oath to end Cronus's reign and restore balance to the cosmos. Thus began the brutal and legendary Titanomachy, a fierce war between the Titans of old and the new Olympian gods. The fighting raged furiously, each battle shaking mountains, leveling forests, and reshaping the earth itself. For 10 exhausting years, neither side gained a decisive advantage. Titans and Olympians battled relentlessly, wielding strength that left the very skies trembling. Yet, even Zeus realized that sheer power alone wasn't enough. Victory demanded even stronger allies. He remembered the imprisoned siblings of Gaia, the Cyclopes and the mighty Hecaton Chiron, who languished deep within Tartarus. Zeus bravely descended into that dark abyss, a place so foreboding that even gods rarely dared approach it. Within the shadows of Tartarus, Zeus found and freed the grateful Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires, who eagerly pledged their allegiance, joining the battle with fierce dedication. To thank Zeus for their freedom, the Cyclopes, brilliant smiths of legendary skill, forged extraordinary weapons. For Zeus, they crafted thunderbolts, glowing weapons of lightning, imbued with such devastating power that no force could withstand them. Poseidon received a mighty trident capable of commanding the seas themselves, summoning storms and tidal waves at will. Hades was granted a magical helmet of darkness, enabling him to move unseen, striking from the shadows with deadly precision. Armed with these weapons, the Olympians surged forward in the war. The tide began to turn decisively, but the true game changers were the towering Hecatoncheires. With their 100 powerful arms, they hurled enormous boulders and mountains at the Titans, who struggled to defend against this overwhelming assault. The combined power of Olympian gods, Cyclopean weapons, and the unstoppable strength of the 100-handed giants finally shattered Titan resistance. One by one, Cronus and his allies were captured and bound. Zeus, having achieved a hard-fought victory, judged the defeated Titans firmly but fairly. Cronus and his fellow Titans were cast down deep into Tartarus, imprisoned within the dark and endless abyss, forever guarded by the vigilant and formidable Hecatoncheires. Their imprisonment marked a decisive shift in cosmic order, ending the era of Titan rule once and for all. Now victorious and free from the looming threat of Cronus's prophecy, Zeus and his siblings established a new divine order. Zeus himself assumed the throne as king of gods, ruler of the vast heavens and the natural order of things. Poseidon became master of the oceans and waters, his mighty trident ensuring calm seas or fierce storms at his command. Hades quietly took dominion over the underworld, becoming its stern yet fair ruler, overseeing the realms of the departed. Hera, Zeus's sister and eventual queen, embodied loyalty, marriage, and divine order, guiding the relationships and interactions among gods and mortals alike. Demeter blessed the world with abundant harvests and fertile fields, nurturing humanity and providing the sustenance needed for civilization to thrive. Finally, Hestia watched over hearths and homes, a quiet yet ever-present force of warmth and security within families and communities. The defeat of Cronus and the Titans marked more than just a victory in battle. It represented a profound turning point in the balance of the cosmos. The Olympian gods reshaped the world in their image, establishing a new order that would endure for ages to come. Yet despite their defeat and imprisonment, the Titans were never completely forgotten. Their stories lingered quietly within myths and legends, reminders of a bygone era of primal power, formidable strength, and fierce ambition. Even in defeat, their legacy lived on, influencing the Olympians and humanity itself in countless subtle ways. Thus ended the age of the Titans as Zeus's reign began, a reign that would echo throughout history, defining the world of gods and mortals forevermore. With the powerful Titans defeated and locked deep inside Tartarus, Zeus and his siblings had a huge task ahead: to rebuild the world and create order out of chaos. After 10 long years of war, it was finally time to bring peace and structure to both gods and mortals. The Olympians chose a towering mountain as their new home, a place known as Mount Olympus. Its peak was so high, covered in mist and snow, that it seemed to brush against the sky itself. Here, Zeus built a magnificent palace, gleaming with gold and silver, filled with marble halls and gardens full of beautiful, sweet-smelling flowers. Around the main hall stood thrones, each uniquely designed for the god or goddess who would sit there. Zeus, leader of the victorious Olympians, naturally became king of the gods, ruling over the skies. His throne sat highest, overlooking all below. The Cyclopes, grateful for their freedom, had crafted for him powerful lightning bolts, symbols of his great authority. Though Zeus was wise and mostly fair, he was also known to act impulsively, sometimes letting his emotions get the better of him, just like humans do. He became protector of justice, hospitality, and law, values deeply important to the Greeks. Poseidon, Zeus's mighty brother, took control of the seas and all waterways. He ruled from a dazzling underwater palace, crafted from coral and shimmering gems, hidden deep beneath the ocean near the mythical city of Atlantis. Sailors respected and feared Poseidon, praying to him before voyages, as his mood could quickly shift from calm to stormy. Armed with a trident, a powerful weapon made by the Cyclopes, he commanded storms, waves, and even earthquakes, proving his strength and unpredictable temper. The third brother, Hades, took charge of the underworld, a dark place hidden beneath the earth. Many feared him, thinking him cruel, but in reality, Hades was fair and quiet, simply ruling over the souls of the departed. Guarded by his three-headed dog Cerberus, the gates of the underworld led to shadowy rivers and caverns, lit only by a pale glow. Hades moved unseen through both the human and divine worlds, thanks to a special helmet that made him invisible, quietly carrying out his duties. With the sky, sea, and underworld ruled by the brothers, the other Olympian gods stepped forward to play their own important roles in maintaining balance. Hera, Zeus's sister and queen, watched over marriage, families, and loyalty. Sitting next to Zeus, she kept a careful eye on the human world, fiercely protective of couples and families. But beneath her graceful presence, Hera often struggled with jealousy, especially due to Zeus's many affairs, which caused endless drama in their divine household. Demeter, gentle and caring, took responsibility for agriculture and the earth's fertility. It was she who ensured crops grew and seasons changed, making her essential for human survival. People worshipped her through festivals like the Eleusinian Mysteries, celebrating the cycle of life and rebirth. Quiet and humble Hestia became the guardian of the home and hearth. Apollo, bright and talented, became god of the sun, music, healing, and prophecy. Each morning he drove his shining golden chariot across the sky, bringing light and warmth to the world. Apollo's music on his golden lyre enchanted anyone who heard it, and people traveled great distances to visit his oracle at Delphi, seeking answers and guidance. His twin sister Artemis took charge of the moon, hunting, and wild places. Artemis was fiercely independent, roaming freely through forests and mountains with her deer and nymph companions. She protected nature and women, often helping with childbirth, but punishing those who disrespected her. Artemis's silver bow symbolized both purity and strength. Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, was born from ocean foam near the island of Cyprus. Her extraordinary beauty influenced gods and mortals alike, sparking passion and romance wherever she went. Married to the skilled but quiet Hephaestus, Aphrodite often caused tension with her romantic adventures, especially her secret affair with the warrior god, Ares. Hephaestus himself, though born lame and often underestimated, became the greatest craftsman on Olympus. In his forge beneath volcanic mountains, he created incredible weapons, armor, jewelry, and inventions with skill and dedication. Quiet and humble, Hephaestus earned respect for his unmatched talent. As these Olympian gods took their places, they began shaping human life in profound ways, influencing everything from agriculture and war to marriage and family. Together, their rich, complex personalities and relationships sparked countless fascinating stories still told today, reminding us of the gods' very human flaws and virtues. These tales, full of adventure and drama, continue to teach valuable lessons about life, love, and morality, connecting humanity deeply with the divine world of Mount Olympus. With the Olympians now settled on Mount Olympus, new gods stepped forward, each playing their own special role in shaping the world below. Among these gods was Hermes, the quick, clever messenger of Olympus. With his winged sandals and traveler's cloak, he could swiftly move between heaven, earth, and the underworld, delivering messages and guiding souls to their final resting place. Known for his cleverness and charm, Hermes was also the god of trade and travel. He once famously stole Apollo's cattle as a playful newborn, showcasing his wit from the very start. Even when caught, Hermes managed to smooth things over by giving Apollo a beautiful lyre he had made, instantly earning Apollo's forgiveness and friendship. Then there was Ares, the fierce and feared god of war. Unlike Athena, who favored strategy and planning, Ares was all about chaos, passion, and brute strength. He represented the harsh truth about conflict, that it was sometimes violent, messy, and unavoidable. The other gods often found him difficult to deal with, especially because of his hot temper and love for battle. Yet despite this, Ares was deeply respected by warriors who prayed to him for courage and victory, understanding that he embodied the raw, unstoppable spirit of war itself. In contrast to the intensity of Ares stood Dionysus, the joyful and unpredictable god of wine, celebration, and ecstasy. He brought humans away to forget their troubles and find happiness, even if only for a night. Dionysus traveled widely, teaching people how to grow grapes and make wine, inspiring wild festivals full of dancing, singing, and laughter. But Dionysus was more than just a god of parties. He also symbolized the idea of rebirth and renewal. His followers believed that losing themselves in celebration helped them reconnect with the divine and find deeper meaning in life. Together, these new Olympian gods completed a diverse family representing all parts of human life, the good and the bad, the wise and the foolish. They often acted just like people, with strong emotions and complicated relationships. Zeus, their king, was powerful, but far from perfect. His many romantic adventures often caused drama and arguments within Olympus. Hera, his wife, fiercely protected marriage and family, but her jealousy led to countless conflicts whenever Zeus strayed. Poseidon, god of the sea, was both respected and feared for his control over oceans and earthquakes. He had a temper as stormy as the seas he ruled, capable of creating calm waters one minute and terrifying storms the next. Athena, the wise warrior goddess, born from Zeus's forehead, offered guidance in battle and helped humans master crafts and skills. Apollo, god of music and prophecy, guided humans toward truth through his oracle at Delphi. His twin sister Artemis fiercely guarded nature, animals, and women, roaming the wild places and protecting those who respected the balance of nature. Aphrodite, the beautiful goddess of love, often found herself at the heart of drama on Olympus because of her affairs, particularly with Ares. Married to Hephaestus, the quiet and gifted craftsman god, Aphrodite's love life often caused tension and intrigue among the gods. Yet Hephaestus was always focused on creating wondrous things in his forge beneath Olympus, crafting powerful weapons and beautiful artifacts, showing his resilience despite being underestimated due to his limp and humble nature. These gods quickly became part of human lives, with cities choosing specific deities to honor and worship. Athens built temples for Athena after she gifted them the olive tree, symbolizing wisdom and prosperity. Sparta praised Ares for their military strength, and Corinth celebrated Aphrodite's beauty through festivals and rituals. People everywhere prayed to the gods, offered sacrifices, and sought divine favor in their daily lives. Zeus's rule also brought a sense of justice and morality. Stories often taught important lessons, punishing those who acted arrogantly and rewarding those who showed humility and respect. Apollo's victory over the monstrous Python at Delphi taught about triumphing over evil, while Dionysus's adventures taught humans the joy and danger of letting go and enjoying life's pleasures. Artemis protected wildlife, teaching respect for the natural world and its delicate balance. Yet, life on Olympus was never completely peaceful. Aphrodite's relationships created tension with Hephaestus, who often felt embarrassed or upset by her infidelity. Hera's constant anger at Zeus's affairs led to revenge and drama, both on Olympus and down among mortals. Apollo and Artemis fiercely defended their mother, Leto, against Hera's jealousy, causing more disputes. Yet despite all their disagreements, the gods understood they needed each other. They knew their combined strength and unity kept the world in balance. Despite his faults, Zeus was generally a wise and fair leader, making decisions that affected both gods and humans. People respected Zeus deeply, creating festivals like the Olympic Games to honor him, and rituals like the Eleusinian Mysteries to honor Demeter, teaching about life's deeper meanings. Ultimately, the establishment of Olympus became more than just a myth. It shaped how the Greeks understood their world and their place in it. The gods reflected humanity's emotions, struggles, dreams, and fears. Their stories, passed down through generations, helped people understand right and wrong, life and death, joy and sorrow. The Olympian family became timeless, their tales remaining fascinating and meaningful, forever etched in human imagination. After the Olympians had settled into their glorious home on Mount Olympus, they turned their eyes toward the world below, a land that needed inhabitants to care for it. Among all the powerful gods, one stood out as particularly fond of these future mortals: Prometheus, the wise and gentle Titan, known for his compassion and cleverness. His story would forever be linked with the creation of humanity, explaining why our lives, even now, are filled with struggle, resilience, and hope. Back when the earth was young and untouched, Zeus gave Prometheus and his brother Epimetheus an important task: filling the world with living creatures. Epimetheus was eager to help, but unlike his careful brother, he was impulsive and acted without thinking ahead. Quickly, he started giving out gifts to all the animals. Some got strength, others speed, sharp teeth, thick fur, or wings. But Epimetheus didn't plan ahead, and before he knew it, he had given away all the good qualities, leaving nothing useful for humans. Seeing his brother's mistake, Prometheus stepped in. He carefully took clay and water, shaping each human figure with great attention and care. He formed these first humans gently, molding them with thoughtful hands until they resembled the gods themselves, beautifully made, fragile, yet full of potential. Prometheus breathed into them a small spark of divine life, making them special, full of possibility, capable of greatness despite their vulnerability. However, life was not easy for these first humans. They had no sharp claws, no thick fur to keep them warm, and no great strength. They shivered in the cold, feared wild animals, and huddled together, vulnerable to darkness and storms. Prometheus watched their struggles and felt deep sorrow. He knew they needed something powerful, something that could help them survive and build a better life. The one thing humans needed most was fire, but fire was sacred, protected closely by Zeus, and reserved only for the gods. Zeus knew if humans had fire, they would grow strong, creative, and independent, perhaps even powerful enough to challenge the gods someday. So Zeus refused to share it, hoping to keep humans forever dependent, but Prometheus couldn't stand seeing humans suffer. So one night, he crept quietly to Olympus, slipping past the watching eyes of the other gods. He took a small ember from the sacred hearth and carefully hid it inside a hollow stalk of fennel. Sneaking away, he carried the precious gift down to the humans below. When the people saw fire for the first time, they stared in wonder and amazement. This warm, glowing flame changed everything. It gave them warmth, safety, cooked food, and encouraged them to build, invent, and dream. Fire became the heart of their new civilization. But Zeus was furious when he found out about Prometheus's theft. Angry at this betrayal, Zeus sentenced the gentle Titan to a terrible punishment. He chained Prometheus to a lonely, rocky mountain in the distant Caucasus, where each day a huge eagle would swoop down, tearing at Prometheus's liver. Every night, the liver would heal, only for the eagle to return and repeat the torment. Despite this endless suffering, Prometheus never regretted his choice, bearing his punishment with dignity, forever symbolizing courage, kindness, and sacrifice. Yet Zeus's anger didn't stop there. He wanted humans to remember their weakness, to ensure they knew their place. Zeus devised a clever, cruel plan to remind them of their vulnerability. He ordered the skilled god Hephaestus to create the first woman from clay. Her name was Pandora. She was stunningly beautiful, kind, graceful, and irresistible. The gods gave her many wonderful gifts. Aphrodite blessed her with charm, Hermes gave her cleverness, and Athena granted her wisdom and elegance. But Zeus added something else, a sealed box filled with secret troubles and sorrows, though Pandora herself knew nothing of what lay inside. Pandora was sent to Epimetheus, who eagerly accepted her as his bride, ignoring the warnings Prometheus had given him about accepting gifts from Zeus. Pandora, filled with curiosity about the mysterious box, struggled to resist opening it. Eventually, unable to hold back her curiosity, she lifted the lid just a crack, and immediately countless miseries poured out. Sickness, sadness, war, famine, envy, and anger escaped, quickly spreading to all humankind. Horrified, Pandora slammed the box shut as fast as she could, trapping inside a single precious thing: hope. Although human life was forever marked by suffering and difficulty, hope remained, quietly waiting, offering comfort and strength in even the darkest of times. As humanity began to adjust to life after Pandora unleashed her famous box, they entered a series of distinct ages, each defined by how mortals lived and interacted with the gods. These ages captured the highs and lows of human nature, from peaceful harmony to conflict, bravery to suffering. Each period was unique, teaching valuable lessons that would guide humanity through time. First came the Golden Age, an almost mythical era of peace and contentment. Under the gentle rule of Cronus, humans lived without fear, hunger, or pain. The world was bountiful, and people never had to struggle or toil. Fruit grew freely from trees, rivers flowed clear and clean, and the land offered its riches willingly. Humans knew no violence, and their lives were easy and joyful, untouched by sorrow or sickness. Death itself was a gentle event, a peaceful passing into a restful afterlife. When their lives ended, these fortunate souls became benevolent spirits who watched over humanity, silently guiding and protecting those who followed. Yet all good things eventually change, and the Silver Age followed. This era marked the shift from perfect innocence to something more complicated. Zeus now ruled from Olympus, and humans began to forget their duties to the gods. They grew careless and ungrateful, neglecting to offer sacrifices or honor the divine beings who had granted them so much. Their lives, though still comfortable, became filled with selfishness and disregard for tradition. Zeus, seeing their disrespect, became deeply disappointed. He ended the Silver Age suddenly, teaching humanity an important lesson about gratitude. Though the souls of this age still became honored spirits, they were forever seen as lesser beings compared to their Golden Age ancestors, their legacy forever marked by their failure to appreciate divine generosity. From this disappointment emerged the Bronze Age, an era defined by its obsession with war, strength, and conflict. Humans discovered how to craft bronze into weapons and armor, and instead of using these skills for good, they turned them toward endless battles. This was a world consumed by violence, where strength and power were the only measures of worth. War replaced peace, and compassion was replaced by aggression. Societies built walls and armies, constantly battling for dominance. Yet this relentless pursuit of power proved their downfall, as humans ultimately destroyed each other through endless conflict. Unlike their predecessors, these souls left no lasting legacy of protection or wisdom, only the grim lesson of the dangers of unchecked aggression. But after this harsh era of warfare came something truly special, the legendary Age of Heroes. Unlike any age before, this time was filled with extraordinary individuals whose bravery and courage became the stuff of legends. Mortals like Hercules, famed for his 12 impossible labors. Achilles, whose courage and strength defined the Trojan War. Perseus, who defeated Medusa and saved kingdoms. And Odysseus, who undertook incredible journeys filled with adventures, monsters, and magic, all rose to prominence. These heroes didn't just survive, they overcame tremendous odds, faced down monsters, challenged gods, and completed quests that became famous for generations. Unlike those who lived before, many heroes who died bravely found eternal peace in the Elysian fields, a paradise reserved for those who demonstrated courage and honor. Here, they enjoyed an afterlife of happiness and glory, forever remembered as shining examples of human potential. Finally came the Iron Age, the challenging era in which humanity now lives. Unlike earlier periods marked by abundance or heroism, the Iron Age has been tough. Life is filled with struggle, hardship, and uncertainty. People must work hard, often with limited rewards. Conflict, injustice, greed, and deceit are common struggles. Yet despite these difficulties, humans continue to persevere, holding tightly onto hope, the very thing Pandora left behind in her box. In this age, the gods seem distant and rarely intervene. Mortals rely largely on their own strength and resilience, drawing inspiration from Prometheus's brave gift of fire, which symbolizes the spark of creativity, ingenuity, and determination that defines humanity. Even when life feels overwhelmingly difficult, humans in this age continue striving to improve their condition, innovate, and maintain a sense of justice and compassion. Together, these 5 ages form a rich and intricate story about humanity's journey, highlighting both our potential and our shortcomings. Prometheus's courage and defiance serve as a reminder of human ingenuity and the determination to improve our lot, no matter the cost. His compassion represents humanity's boundless spirit of innovation and resilience. In contrast, Pandora's story symbolizes the complexity of human nature, the tension between curiosity and consequence, hardship and hope. It teaches us that while suffering may be unavoidable, hope remains a powerful force capable of guiding humanity through even the darkest of times. Each age teaches a unique lesson. The Golden Age reminds us of the value of harmony, simplicity, and kindness. The Silver Age warns us against arrogance, neglect, and ingratitude toward those who help us. The Bronze Age serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of violence, aggression, and unchecked ambition. The Age of Heroes inspires courage, valor, and the pursuit of excellence, showing that individuals can rise to extraordinary heights through bravery and integrity. Lastly, the Iron Age reflects the reality of human life, marked by complexity, struggle, and moral ambiguity, but also resilience, adaptability, and hope. Long after Zeus and his siblings took their thrones on Olympus, the world below began to take shape, filling up with humans, animals, and mysterious creatures. But soon, Zeus noticed that humans were becoming greedy, cruel, and disrespectful toward the gods. Furious, He decided to start over and wash away humanity with a great flood, yet Zeus didn't want all humans gone. He remembered two kind and respectful people, Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha, who still honored the gods and treated others well. Deucalion was the son of Prometheus, the clever titan who had created humans from clay and gifted them with the precious secret of fire. Pyrrha was the gentle and wise daughter of Epimetheus, Prometheus's brother, and Pandora, the woman who had once opened a mysterious box and unintentionally unleashed trouble into the world. Despite their complicated heritage, Deucalion and Pyrrha were thoughtful, honest, and kind-hearted people, known far and wide for their humility and deep reverence toward the gods. They were the perfect choice to survive Zeus's impending wrath. Prometheus, still chained to a lonely mountaintop as punishment for helping humanity, watched the sky darken and knew what Zeus planned to do. Desperate to save his beloved son, Prometheus found a way to secretly communicate his warning to Deucalion, urging him to prepare immediately. Trusting his father completely, Deucalion quickly set to work, building a large wooden chest. More than just a boat, it was sturdy, tightly sealed, and carefully constructed to withstand the fury Zeus was about to unleash. He worked tirelessly, knowing the chest would be the only hope for himself and Pyrrha. Soon enough, dark storm clouds rolled in, blocking out the sun. Thunder cracked loudly across the heavens, lightning flashed fiercely, and the rain started falling. At first it seemed ordinary, but the rainfall quickly intensified, pouring from the sky without any pause. Rivers burst their banks, lakes overflowed, and the oceans rose rapidly, swallowing entire towns, forests, and eventually even the tallest mountains. No matter where people tried to escape, there was no safety to be found. Only Deucalion and Pyrrha survived, sealed safely inside their wooden chest, riding the waves atop the endless, stormy sea. After 9 long, exhausting days, the rain finally began to ease, and soon the floodwaters slowly receded. Their chest eventually came to rest on the quiet, high peaks of Mount Parnassus. As they stepped out, Deucalion and Pyrrha gazed around in shock and sorrow. The entire world was quiet and empty, covered in mud and debris, completely silent except for the dripping of water. They searched desperately for signs of life, calling out in vain. They quickly realized they were truly alone, the last 2 humans on Earth. Heartbroken and uncertain of what to do next, Deucalion and Pyrrha felt overwhelmed by their loneliness. They knew they couldn't rebuild humanity on their own without guidance. Together, they made their way down the mountain to a sacred site, the temple of Themis, the wise goddess of justice and prophecy. Kneeling humbly before her altar, they begged for advice on how to restore life to the empty world. Themis, deeply moved by their sincere plea, answered with a cryptic instruction: "Throw behind you the bones of your mother." At first, Deucalion and Pyrrha were horrified. They couldn't imagine disturbing their mother's bones. It felt wrong and disrespectful. Confused, they sat together, quietly pondering the oracle's strange words. Suddenly, Deucalion's eyes brightened with understanding. He realized the goddess had given them a riddle. The mother she referred to wasn't their human mothers, it was Mother Earth herself. The bones she spoke of were not real bones at all, but stones scattered across the muddy landscape around them. Relieved and hopeful, they stood and began collecting stones from the ground. With quiet reverence, they each took turns throwing the stones gently behind their backs, just as the goddess had instructed. As each stone touched the earth, an extraordinary thing began to happen. The stones began shifting and transforming before their very eyes, changing from cold, lifeless rock into warm, breathing human forms. Stones tossed by Deucalion slowly turned into strong, sturdy men, while those Pyrrha threw took shape as gentle, nurturing women. Soon, an entirely new generation of humans stood before them, blinking in wonder at the world reborn around them. Deucalion and Pyrrha became the wise elders and guides of this new humanity, teaching them kindness, respect, and humility. Under their gentle care, the world once again blossomed with communities, farms, and families, restoring life to the empty lands. As time passed, these stone-born humans would spread out, creating villages, towns, and eventually entire civilizations, always carrying with them the lessons of humility and kindness passed down from the Great Flood. As humanity began to thrive again, mysterious creatures also emerged across the lands and seas. Some were friendly, others terrifying, but all added wonder and danger to the human world. One of these creatures was the Cyclops, a towering giant easily recognizable by the single massive eye right in the middle of its forehead. Not all Cyclopes were the same, though. Some were master craftsmen, skilled and intelligent, creating powerful weapons for the gods themselves. Among these helpful Cyclopes were Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, who forged Zeus's fearsome lightning bolts, Poseidon's mighty trident, and Hades' helmet of invisibility. These Cyclopes, strong and gentle, quietly worked beneath the earth, aiding the Olympians in their rule. But others of their kind were wild, fierce, and dangerous, preferring to live far from gods and humans alike, hidden away in dark caves deep in the mountains. These untamed Cyclopes cared for vast herds of sheep, fiercely protecting their livestock from intruders. The most infamous of these wild Cyclopes was Polyphemus, a giant who lived alone on a secluded island. Polyphemus was huge and terrifying, strong enough to crush boulders with ease. His story became legendary when the hero Odysseus accidentally stumbled upon his cave after returning from the Trojan War. Polyphemus trapped Odysseus and his crew inside his cave, sealing the entrance with a massive stone. In a desperate attempt to escape, Odysseus cleverly blinded the giant by driving a sharp, burning stake into his single eye. Polyphemus roared in pain, helplessly searching for the hero and his men. Eventually, Odysseus escaped by hiding beneath Polyphemus's sheep, tricking the furious and blinded Cyclops into letting them go. Another powerful group of beings that roamed the earth at this time were simply called the Giants. Born from Gaia herself, these enormous and aggressive creatures were strong enough to shake mountains and split the earth beneath their feet. They were fearsome warriors, always eager to challenge even the gods themselves. Eventually, their desire to overthrow the Olympians led to an epic war known as the Gigantomachy. This great battle involved gods and heroes alike. Zeus wielded his lightning bolts, Athena brandished her mighty shield and spear, Apollo shot flaming arrows, and Hercules, the bravest mortal hero, fought tirelessly alongside them. The giants fought fiercely, hurling enormous rocks and uprooting entire mountains. Each battle thundered across the heavens and the earth, shaking the foundations of the world. Finally, after a long and exhausting struggle, the Olympian gods, aided by Hercules, managed to defeat these dangerous beings. Many giants were imprisoned deep underground, trapped beneath volcanic mountains, where their restless struggles were said to cause earthquakes and eruptions for generations. Then there was Medusa, one of the most feared and mysterious creatures to roam ancient Greece. Unlike other monsters, Medusa had once been a beautiful young woman, admired by many for her lovely hair and graceful appearance. Unfortunately, her beauty attracted unwanted attention. Poseidon, god of the sea, pursued her and eventually confronted her in the sacred temple of Athena. Angered by this desecration of her temple, Athena punished Medusa, transforming her beauty into a terrifying curse. Medusa's soft hair became a writhing mass of venomous snakes. Her gentle eyes turned into a deadly weapon. Anyone who dared look directly at her face was instantly turned into solid stone. Terrified by her own power and shunned by the world, Medusa fled to a remote place, living in isolation and bitterness, hiding away in darkness. Many warriors tried and failed to defeat her, turned instantly to stone, and adding to the haunting collection of statues scattered around her lonely lair. Eventually, the hero Perseus stepped forward, determined to succeed where others had failed. With guidance from Athena, who wanted to finally end Medusa's curse, Perseus approached carefully, using a brightly polished bronze shield as a mirror to avoid looking directly at her deadly gaze. With quick skill, he succeeded, striking the decisive blow and ending Medusa's tragic existence. Perseus then carried her severed head, safely hidden in a protective bag, using its power to defeat other enemies along his journeys. Far away, on the island of Crete, there lurked yet another terrifying creature, the Minotaur, a fearsome monster half-man and half-bull. The Minotaur's existence began with a curse placed upon King Minos of Crete. The king's wife, Pasiphae, fell victim to an enchantment and gave birth to this frightening beast. Horrified and ashamed, Minos sought the help of Daedalus, a brilliant inventor and craftsman. Daedalus built an immense maze called the Labyrinth, a confusing network of tunnels and corridors impossible to escape, and locked the Minotaur within it. Every year, King Minos demanded that Athens send 14 youths, 7 young men and 7 young women, as a sacrifice to feed the Minotaur. For years, this terrifying tribute continued, until finally a brave young prince from Athens named Theseus volunteered to face the monster himself. Upon arriving in Crete, Theseus met Ariadne, King Minos' daughter, who immediately fell in love with him. Ariadne decided to help Theseus, giving him a ball of thread so he could find his way back out of the labyrinth after confronting the monster. Armed with courage and Ariadne's gift, Theseus entered the dark maze and finally encountered the monstrous Minotaur, fighting fiercely and defeating it, ending the cruel sacrifices once and for all. Another monster that haunted the ancient Greek world was the terrifying Hydra, a giant serpent with multiple heads, each filled with venomous fangs. The Hydra lived in the murky swamps near the city of Lerna, guarding its territory fiercely. The creature's terrifying ability was that whenever one of its heads was cut off, 2 more immediately grew in its place, making it seemingly impossible to kill. This made the Hydra one of the most dangerous monsters in existence, feared by all who lived nearby. Eventually, the hero Hercules was tasked with defeating the Hydra as part of his 12 labors, seemingly impossible tasks assigned to him as punishment. Realizing he could not defeat it alone, Hercules brought along his clever nephew, Iolaus. During the battle, Hercules would cut off one of the Hydra's heads, and quickly, Iolaus would use a flaming torch to burn the stump, preventing new heads from growing back. Working together with strength and intelligence, Hercules and Iolaus finally defeated the fearsome Hydra, making the swamps safe again. Finally, the last creature to haunt humanity during this era was the terrifying Chimera. This monster had the body and head of a lion, a goat's head emerging from its back, and a serpent for its tail. It breathed scorching flames, destroying villages and causing terror across the countryside. No warrior dared face it until the brave young hero Bellerophon came along. Aided by the goddess Athena, Bellerophon tamed the winged horse Pegasus and devised a daring plan. Riding atop Pegasus, he soared high above the Chimera's fiery attacks, safely beyond the reach of its flames and claws. From this position, Bellerophon struck the monster repeatedly, using his agility and quick thinking to avoid harm. After a fierce battle, the Chimera fell, finally defeated, and peace returned to the lands it had terrorized. One of the earliest and most famous of these heroes was Perseus, whose incredible story began long before his birth, with a prophecy told to his grandfather, King Acrisius of Argos. Acrisius had been warned by the oracle at Delphi that his own grandson would one day cause his downfall. Terrified and determined to avoid this fate, Acrisius locked his only daughter, Danae, inside a sturdy bronze tower to ensure she never had children. But even the strongest locks and thickest walls couldn't keep out Zeus, who noticed Danae's beauty and gentleness from his throne on Olympus. Transforming himself into a shower of glittering golden rain, Zeus slipped through the cracks of the tower, filling the dark room with a warm and comforting glow. From this magical meeting, Perseus was conceived, destined from birth for greatness. When Acrisius discovered Danae had given birth despite his precautions, he flew into a rage, convinced the prophecy was coming true. Too afraid to anger the gods by directly harming his daughter and her child, he sealed them inside a sturdy wooden chest and pushed it out onto the rough sea, hoping the cruel waves would carry them away forever. Zeus watched over them closely, guiding the chest safely to the shores of the tiny island of Seriphos. There, a kind and humble fisherman named Dictys found them washed ashore, taking Danae and Perseus in as his own family, raising the boy with care, teaching him courage, humility, and strength. Yet their peaceful life wouldn't last. Dictys had a brother named Polydectes, the powerful and cunning king of the island, who soon noticed Danae's great beauty and desired her for himself. Polydectes, knowing Perseus would fiercely defend his mother, devised a clever plan to rid himself of the young hero. Pretending to marry another woman, Polydectes threw a grand celebration, demanding that every guest bring him extravagant gifts. Perseus, proud yet poor, had nothing to offer. In front of the entire crowd, the king mocked him, prompting Perseus to impulsively promise he would bring the king whatever he desired, even the impossible. Smiling wickedly, Polydectes demanded the head of Medusa, knowing no man who had faced her had ever survived. Perseus was brave, but even he realized the task was hopeless without help. Fortunately, the gods had already chosen to protect him. Athena, goddess of wisdom, appeared to Perseus in a vision. She despised Medusa, who had offended her long ago, and eagerly aided Perseus in his quest. Athena gave him a polished bronze shield, so bright and clear it worked as a mirror, protecting Perseus from Medusa's deadly gaze. Hermes, messenger of the gods, lent Perseus a razor-sharp sword capable of slicing through anything, and winged sandals that let him fly swiftly above the earth. They told Perseus he must first visit the mysterious Graeae, 3 ancient sisters who shared a single eye and tooth, to discover the secret location of Medusa's hidden cave. Following their instructions, Perseus flew swiftly across the skies until he reached the bleak and distant home of the Graeae. The 3 old sisters lived in darkness, constantly passing around their shared eye and tooth. Perseus cleverly waited until the eye was being passed, then snatched it away, leaving the sisters helpless and frantic. They begged Perseus to return their precious eye, and he promised to do so only if they revealed the way to Medusa's hidden lair. Unable to refuse, they reluctantly gave him detailed directions, and true to his word, Perseus returned their eye and hurried off to his final destination. With a pounding heart, Perseus arrived at Medusa's lair, a dark and eerie cave surrounded by stone statues, each a victim of her deadly stare. Carefully stepping inside, he used the mirror-bright shield Athena had provided, never once risking a direct glance at Medusa's terrifying face. Slowly, he approached, heart hammering with fear and excitement. At just the right moment, he swung his blade with all his strength, swiftly removing Medusa's head. From her blood sprang the winged horse Pegasus, who immediately soared toward the heavens. Perseus quickly tucked Medusa's head safely into a magic bag Athena had given him, one that could safely hold its deadly power. With his task completed, Perseus set off homeward, but his adventure was far from over. Flying above distant shores, he saw a beautiful princess named Andromeda, chained helplessly to a rocky cliff beside the sea. Andromeda had been left there as a sacrifice, punishment for her mother's boastfulness that she was more beautiful than the sea nymphs. Furious at the insult, Poseidon had sent a fearsome sea monster to destroy the kingdom. Perseus instantly knew he had to help. Diving from the sky, he faced the monstrous creature head-on. At the perfect moment, Perseus swiftly unveiled Medusa's head, turning the roaring beast instantly into solid stone, forever frozen mid-attack. Freed and grateful, Andromeda became Perseus's beloved wife, joining him on his journey home. Returning at last to Seriphos, Perseus found his mother tormented and pursued by Polydectes. Angry and determined to protect her, Perseus boldly marched into the king's throne room and without hesitation revealed Medusa's head once more. Polydectes and his cruel followers instantly turned to stone, ending their tyranny forever. Perseus placed Dictys, the kind fisherman, upon the throne, bringing peace and prosperity to the island. Finally, he handed the powerful head of Medusa over to Athena, who set it proudly upon her shield to guard future generations of heroes. Not long after Perseus's incredible adventures, another hero began his story in secret: Theseus, son of Aegeus, the king of Athens. As a young man, Theseus lived far from Athens, raised in the countryside by his wise and brave mother Aethra. When Theseus came of age, his mother revealed his royal heritage, sending him to Athens to meet his father. Determined to prove himself worthy, Theseus chose the difficult road by land, despite warnings of its dangers. Along this journey, Theseus faced many fierce enemies. He defeated cruel bandits who terrorized travelers, such as the giant Periphetes, known as the Club-Bearer, who attacked anyone who crossed his path. Theseus cleverly overcame him, taking his mighty club. He next faced Sinis, a brutal robber who tied victims to bent trees and released them, tearing them apart. Theseus bravely outsmarted Sinis, defeating him with his own terrible method. Later, he encountered the monstrous Crommyonian sow, a wild beast terrorizing entire villages, and slew it in a fierce struggle. He also defeated Chiron, who forced travelers to wash his feet before kicking them off a cliff into the sea, and Procrustes, who cruelly forced victims onto his bed, stretching or cutting them to fit perfectly. With each battle, Theseus grew stronger and wiser, finally arriving in Athens, a hero already famed throughout Greece. In Athens, Theseus found his father Aegeus troubled by a terrible agreement. Every year, Athens had to send 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete as sacrifices to the terrifying Minotaur, a monster half-man, half-bull, trapped in a great maze called the Labyrinth. Determined to end this horror, Theseus boldly volunteered himself to go to Crete, promising his father that if he succeeded, he would return flying white sails instead of black to signal victory. Arriving in Crete, Theseus quickly caught the eye of Ariadne, the kind and brave daughter of King Minos. Ariadne admired Theseus's courage and decided to help him. In secret, she gave him a simple ball of thread, explaining that by unrolling it as he entered the labyrinth, he could follow it back out after defeating the Minotaur. With her guidance, Theseus bravely stepped into the dark, winding passages, holding tight to Ariadne's thread. Deep within the maze, Theseus confronted the Minotaur, a massive creature whose fierce roar echoed through the tunnels. A brutal fight followed, echoing off stone walls, as Theseus dodged powerful strikes from the beast's horns. With swift and careful blows, Theseus wore down the monster, eventually delivering a decisive strike. With the Minotaur defeated, Theseus swiftly retraced his path along Ariadne's thread, leading his fellow Athenians safely from the maze. Triumphant, Theseus fled Crete with Ariadne at his side, heading home in glory. But tragedy struck as they neared Athens. Amid the excitement, Theseus forgot his promise to raise white sails. From the cliffs, King Aegeus saw the black sails still flying, believing his son dead. Heartbroken and overcome by grief, Aegeus threw himself from the cliffs into the sea below, giving the waters their name, the Aegean Sea, in memory of the grieving king. Theseus returned as a hero, deeply saddened but determined to honor his father. He became a wise and strong ruler, remembered for his courage and kindness long after his adventures ended, his story told and retold around fires for generations to come. Meanwhile, another hero, perhaps the greatest of them all, emerged, Heracles, often known as Hercules, son of Zeus, and the mortal woman Alcmene. Even from the moment of his birth, Heracles was destined for greatness. Zeus, disguised as Alcmene's own husband Amphitryon, had spent a night with her, ensuring Heracles' divine lineage. When Heracles was still a tiny baby, Hera, Zeus's jealous wife, tried to end his life. She sent 2 deadly serpents slithering into his crib, expecting the infant to be helpless against them. Yet even as a child, Heracles' incredible strength showed itself. When Alcmene and Amphitryon rushed into the room, fearing the worst, they instead saw baby Heracles, laughing, gripping the lifeless snakes in his small fists. As Heracles grew, his strength and bravery became legendary, but Hera's anger never faded. Consumed by jealousy, she cast a cruel spell on Heracles, making him temporarily lose his mind. In a terrible frenzy, he tragically harmed those closest to him. When Heracles finally awoke from the madness and realized what he had done, he was devastated. Determined to find redemption, Heracles visited the Oracle of Delphi to learn how he could atone for his actions. The oracle sent him to King Eurystheus of Mycenae, who, secretly working with Hera, gave Heracles 12 impossible tasks known as the 12 labors, believing they would surely defeat him. These labors pushed Heracles beyond human limits. His first labor was to defeat the monstrous Nemean lion, a beast whose golden hide was so tough no weapon could pierce it. Heracles tracked the lion to its cave, confronting it bravely. After fierce combat, Heracles realized no sword or spear would harm the lion, so he wrestled the massive beast with his bare hands, finally overpowering it. Victorious, he wore its impenetrable hide as protective armor from then on. Next, Heracles faced the dreaded Lernaean Hydra, a huge serpent-like monster with many poisonous heads. Every time he sliced off one head, 2 more immediately sprouted in its place. With his clever nephew Iolaus assisting him, Heracles battled fiercely. Each time he severed a head, Iolaus used a burning torch to quickly cauterize the wound, preventing new heads from growing. After a long, exhausting fight, the last head fell, and the Hydra was finally defeated. Heracles' third labor sent him after the elusive and sacred Ceryneian hind, a golden-horned deer favored by the goddess Artemis herself. This creature was swift as the wind, and Heracles spent an entire year carefully tracking it through mountains, forests, and valleys. Finally catching it without harm, Heracles showed it respectfully to Eurystheus, then immediately released it back into the wild, earning Artemis's reluctant admiration for his gentle strength. Next, Heracles confronted the ferocious Erymanthian boar, an enormous wild beast terrorizing local villages. After chasing it tirelessly through snow-covered mountains, he captured the snarling creature alive and carried it back triumphantly to King Eurystheus, who cowered in terror, hiding in a bronze jar at the sight of the fierce boar. For another labor, Heracles was ordered to clean the filthy Augean stables, home to thousands of cattle whose waste had piled up for years. Realizing brute strength alone wouldn't solve this problem, Heracles cleverly redirected 2 nearby rivers through the stables, washing away the filth in a single day, stunning everyone who witnessed the task. Heracles then faced the Stymphalian birds, monstrous birds with iron feathers that they shot like arrows. Athena herself lent him a special bronze rattle, its noise frightening the birds from their hiding places. Heracles quickly drew his bow, shooting them down as they soared into the sky. His next labor was capturing the fearsome Cretan bull, a mighty beast that Poseidon had sent as punishment to King Minos. Heracles grappled fiercely with the bull, wrestling it into submission, and sailed it back safely to Eurystheus, who again trembled at the sight of Heracles' strength. The 8th labor took Heracles to the land of Thrace, where King Diomedes kept fierce, man-eating horses. Heracles bravely captured these terrifying creatures, feeding their cruel master to them, instantly taming their ferocity. He then brought them back safely, proving yet again his courage and cleverness. Next, Heracles journeyed to the land of the Amazons to retrieve the beautiful belt of their mighty queen, Hippolyta. Initially, the queen was willing to help, but Hera, in disguise, spread mistrust among the Amazons, prompting an intense battle. Heracles reluctantly defeated the fierce warriors, successfully claiming the belt and completing his task. The 10th labor took Heracles far to the west, beyond the known world, to seize the cattle of the giant Geryon, a massive being with 3 heads and bodies. After an epic battle, Heracles slew Geryon and carefully drove the unruly herd across mountains, rivers, and seas, bringing them triumphantly home. His penultimate task was to collect magical golden apples from the Garden of the Hesperides, a place guarded fiercely by a sleepless dragon named Ladon. After a long search, Heracles cleverly convinced the mighty Titan Atlas, who who held the heavens on his shoulders to retrieve the apples while Heracles temporarily took his burden. When Atlas returned, he refused to take the heavens back. Thinking quickly, Heracles tricked Atlas into holding the sky again, escaping with the precious apples. Finally, Heracles faced his most daunting task, descending into the underworld to capture Cerberus, the fierce three-headed guardian dog of Hades' realm. With bravery and respect, Heracles approached Hades himself, who allowed him to attempt the challenge only if he used no weapons. Relying solely on his great strength, Heracles wrestled Cerberus into submission, carefully bringing him up to the living world to present to Eurystheus, who was terrified beyond belief. Immediately afterward, Heracles safely returned Cerberus to Hades' side, ending his last and greatest labor. Elsewhere, a hero named Jason gathered his own team of brave adventurers, known as the Argonauts, to pursue the legendary Golden Fleece, a magical sheepskin hidden far across the sea in a distant land called Colchis. Jason's journey began because he was the rightful heir to the kingdom of Iolcus, stolen by his cruel uncle, Peleus. Peleus, fearful of losing his throne, cleverly challenged Jason to retrieve the Golden Fleece, secretly hoping Jason would never return from such a perilous quest. Determined and brave, Jason recruited a remarkable crew aboard his ship, the Argo, some of the greatest heroes of his time, including the mighty Hercules himself, the talented musician Orpheus, the fierce huntress Atalanta, and the wise twin brothers, Castor and Pollux. Their journey across uncharted seas was filled with incredible dangers. They narrowly avoided the deadly sirens, whose haunting songs could drive sailors mad, only saved by the enchanting music of Orpheus. They also faced the dreaded clashing rocks, massive cliffs that would crush any passing ship. Jason cleverly sent a dove ahead, timing their passage perfectly, guiding the Argo safely through at precisely the right moment. Upon reaching Colchis, Jason's trials grew even greater. King Aeetes, the powerful and cunning ruler, set nearly impossible tasks before Jason as the price for the Golden Fleece. But Jason had an unexpected ally, Medea, Aeetes' daughter, a powerful sorceress who fell deeply in love with Jason the moment she saw him. Medea used her magical arts to help Jason accomplish every challenge. She gave him a magical potion to protect him from the fierce fire-breathing bulls he had to harness. When he was ordered to plant dragon's teeth in the soil, Medea warned him they would spring into deadly warriors. Prepared by her, Jason cleverly caused these warriors to turn against one another, defeating themselves. Finally, Jason approached the sacred grove where the Golden Fleece hung, guarded by a massive dragon that never slept. Once more, Medea's powerful magic aided him, softly lulling the beast into a deep slumber. Jason quickly seized the fleece, its golden wool gleaming brilliantly, and fled with Medea and his crew back to their waiting ship. Despite being pursued fiercely by Aeetes, the Argonauts made a thrilling escape across stormy seas and dangerous waters, finally returning home victorious. Back in Iolcus, Jason reclaimed his rightful throne from his uncle Peleus. Yet even then, his adventures continued, forever shaping the lives and destinies of himself, Medea, and all who joined their legendary quest. The stories of Perseus, Theseus, Heracles, and Jason became tales told around countless campfires, exciting and thrilling listeners with their courage, cunning, and the ever-present guiding hands of the gods. As time passed, a new age of heroes dawned across Greece. Mighty warriors arose, kingdoms clashed, and epic battles unfolded. Among all these legendary stories, none was greater or more unforgettable than the Trojan War, a fierce, decade-long conflict fought for the love of one woman and the pride of mighty kings. It all began at a joyous wedding feast, where the gods gathered in celebration of the marriage between the mortal hero Peleus and the beautiful sea goddess Thetis. Everyone from Olympus was invited, except for Eris, the goddess of discord and strife, understandably, since she was always stirring trouble. Furious at being left out, Eris quietly slipped into the celebration and rolled a golden apple across the floor, engraved with the words, "To the fairest." Immediately, the mood turned tense. Three powerful goddesses, Hera, queen of the gods, Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, and Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Each claimed the apple as her own, each believing she was the fairest. Zeus, wisely understanding the danger of choosing between these goddesses, refused to judge the contest himself. Instead, he sent the three goddesses to a young shepherd prince named Paris, who lived quietly near the slopes of Mount Ida, far from the bustling royal palace of Troy, where his father, King Priam, ruled. Paris had grown up away from the palace because of a prophecy that foretold he would one day cause the downfall of his city. Unaware of this destiny, Paris lived a simple life, tending sheep and playing music beneath the stars. When Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite appeared before him, their beauty and power overwhelmed him. To sway his decision, each goddess offered him a tempting reward. Hera promised to make Paris a powerful ruler over many kingdoms, respected and admired by all. Athena vowed to grant him supreme wisdom and skill in battle, making him unstoppable in war. But Aphrodite knew the deepest desire of the young prince's heart. She offered him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, a woman whose beauty would outshine all others. Without hesitation, Paris chose Aphrodite, unknowingly sealing the fate of thousands. That woman was Helen, wife of King Menelaus of Sparta. Her beauty was unmatched, admired by kings and warriors across all of Greece. Soon after, Paris traveled to Sparta as a royal guest, welcomed warmly by Menelaus himself. But with Aphrodite's magic, Helen was instantly smitten with Paris the moment she saw him. Unable to resist the powerful spell of love placed upon her, Helen left Sparta secretly with Paris, sailing across the sea back to Troy, leaving behind a furious and heartbroken Menelaus. Determined to reclaim Helen and restore his honor, Menelaus turned to his brother Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, and the mightiest ruler in all of Greece. Agamemnon was eager for war, sensing the chance to expand his power and glory. He rallied every kingdom and warrior he could call upon, assembling the largest Greek army ever seen. Heroes from across the Greek lands answered his call, ready for battle. Thousands of ships gathered along the shore, sailing across the Aegean toward the mighty city of Troy. Among the great warriors were Odysseus, the wise and cunning king of Ithaca, known for his cleverness and smooth speech; Ajax the Greater, a towering figure whose strength was unmatched; and the fierce warrior Diomedes, whose bravery became legendary on the battlefield. Yet the greatest of all these warriors was the young hero Achilles, son of Peleus and Thetis. Achilles was nearly unbeatable in battle, as his mother had dipped him into the sacred river Styx when he was just a baby, making his body invincible except for a single vulnerable point, his heel, by which she had held him. When the Greeks finally landed near Troy, they began a siege that would last for 10 brutal years. Battles raged fiercely, yet neither side could gain a decisive advantage. Achilles quickly established himself as the most terrifying force on the battlefield, striking fear into the hearts of the Trojans. But his pride clashed bitterly with Agamemnon, who seized Achilles' beloved captive Briseis. Insulted and furious, Achilles refused to fight any longer, choosing instead to withdraw from battle until his honor was restored. Without Achilles, the Greeks suffered badly. The Trojan prince Hector, eldest son of King Priam, was noble, courageous, and fiercely loyal. He led the Trojan armies valiantly, pushing the Greeks back again and again. Every Trojan warrior fought bravely behind Hector, who became their symbol of hope. Hector was more than just a fighter. He was a beloved son, husband, father, and a protector of his people. His wife, Andromache, and young son, Astyanax, watched anxiously from the city walls, hoping he would return safely each day. The gods themselves were deeply involved, unable to stay neutral. Hera and Athena sided fiercely with the Greeks, still bitter from Paris's earlier judgment. Aphrodite, Apollo, and Ares supported Troy, guiding warriors and influencing battles. Zeus watched the tragic events unfold with sadness, torn by his own complicated loyalties, and knowing that fate could not be changed. As years passed, Hector led a bold and powerful attack, driving the Greeks dangerously close to their ships. Realizing the Greek cause was now desperate, Achilles' closest friend and beloved companion, Patroclus, begged Achilles to let him enter the fight wearing Achilles' own armor, hoping to frighten the Trojans into retreat. Reluctantly, Achilles agreed. Patroclus fought bravely, but was quickly identified and challenged by Hector himself. In a fierce, tragic battle, Hector slew Patroclus, mistaking him briefly for Achilles. As he removed Achilles' armor, Hector realized the terrible truth, knowing now that Achilles' vengeance would soon follow. The news of Patroclus' death shattered Achilles' heart. Overwhelmed by grief and driven by fury, Achilles finally returned to the battlefield, his rage making him unstoppable. He charged into the Trojan ranks, scattering soldiers in terror. At last, Achilles stood before Hector outside the great walls of Troy. Their duel was fierce, but Hector, brave and noble, knew in his heart he could not overcome the wrath of Achilles. After a desperate struggle, Achilles struck Hector down, claiming revenge for his fallen friend. But Achilles' anger was not satisfied. He dishonored Hector's body, tying it behind his chariot and dragging it around the city walls as a painful insult. The people of Troy watched in horror and despair. Finally, in an incredible act of courage, King Priam himself slipped secretly into the Greek camp under cover of night. The old king knelt before Achilles, begging through tears to have his son's body returned. Deeply moved by Priam's grief, Achilles relented, allowing Hector's body to be properly mourned with honor. Still, Troy refused to surrender. Finally, Odysseus, known for his cunning intelligence, devised an ingenious trick. The Greeks pretended to abandon the war and sailed away, leaving behind only an enormous wooden horse as a supposed offering to Athena. Hidden inside the horse were elite Greek warriors, including Odysseus himself. Believing the war finally over, the Trojans joyfully brought the massive horse into their city as a victory trophy. That night, while Troy slept, Odysseus and his men silently emerged from the horse, opening the city gates to the waiting Greek army that had secretly returned under the cover of darkness. Troy was quickly overwhelmed. Fires consumed the magnificent city, warriors clashed fiercely, and chaos erupted throughout the streets. King Priam fell, Paris himself was slain, and the proud city that had withstood siege for 10 long years crumbled in a single night. Helen was reunited with Menelaus, who forgave her and brought her back to Sparta, while many Trojan survivors fled or were captured. Thus, the great city of Troy fell at last, fulfilling the tragic prophecies that had followed Paris since his birth. Heroes rose and fell, bravery met tragedy, and the world was forever changed. These incredible stories of Achilles' wrath, Hector's courage, Odysseus' cleverness, and the devastating cost of war became legendary, passed down around countless campfires for generations to come. With Troy destroyed, the Greek heroes finally set sail for home. But the gods, angered by the terrible destruction and disrespectful actions during the sack of Troy, sent fierce storms, scattering the Greek fleet. Many heroes faced great hardships, none more so than Odysseus, whose journey home would last another 10 long and difficult years. Odysseus' travels became legendary. His first major challenge was the island of the Cyclopes, where Odysseus and his men became trapped in the cave of Polyphemus, a giant, one-eyed monster. Odysseus cleverly introduced himself as nobody, then blinded Polyphemus by thrusting a burning stake into his eye. When the Cyclops cried for help, shouting, "Nobody blinded me!" the other Cyclopes ignored him, allowing Odysseus and his men to escape beneath the bellies of the giant's sheep. Yet their hardships continued. Odysseus and his crew encountered the enchantress Circe, whose magical spells turned his men into swine. With the help of Hermes, Odysseus protected himself from her enchantments and confronted Circe bravely, convincing her to restore his men. Odysseus stayed for a year on Circe's island, resting and recovering before setting out again. Guided by Circe, Odysseus journeyed to the underworld itself, speaking to the prophet Tiresias, and receiving warnings and guidance for the difficult path ahead. His next challenge was to safely navigate past the deadly sirens, whose irresistible songs lured sailors to their deaths. Remembering Circe's advice, Odysseus plugged his men's ears with wax and tied himself firmly to his ship's mast, allowing him to hear the sirens' haunting music without risking their lives. Odysseus's ship then had to pass between two terrible dangers: Scylla, a six-headed monster who snatched sailors from their ships, and Charybdis, a terrifying whirlpool that swallowed whole ships. Choosing the lesser evil, Odysseus guided his ship closer to Scylla, tragically losing 6 brave men, but preserving his ship and the rest of his crew. Eventually, Odysseus's exhausted crew landed on the island of Helios, the sun god. Despite Odysseus's warnings, his hungry men slaughtered Helios's sacred cattle, provoking the god's wrath. Helios demanded revenge, and Zeus sent a fierce storm that destroyed the ship, killing all of Odysseus's crew. Only Odysseus survived, washing ashore on the island of the goddess Calypso, who held him captive for 7 years before Zeus finally commanded his release. After a long, lonely voyage, Odysseus finally reached his home island of Ithaca, but his struggles weren't over. In his long absence, arrogant suitors had gathered at his palace, trying to claim his kingdom and marry his faithful wife, Penelope. With help from his son Telemachus and loyal servants, Odysseus disguised himself as an old beggar and carefully plotted revenge. In a contest arranged by Penelope to finally choose her husband, Odysseus alone could string his great bow and shoot an arrow perfectly through 12 aligned axes, stunning everyone present. Throwing off his disguise, Odysseus, together with Telemachus and his loyal friends, defeated the suitors and reclaimed his home and throne. At last, after 2 decades away, Odysseus was reunited with Penelope and his family, ending his long and exhausting journey. His adventures, along with the epic struggles of Achilles, Hector, and all who fought bravely in the Trojan War, became stories told again and again around countless campfires. Their deeds, courage, cunning, and struggles echoed down through the ages, remembered forever as Greece's greatest and most enduring legends. With Troy destroyed, the Greek heroes finally set sail for home. But the gods, angered by the terrible destruction and disrespectful actions during the sack of Troy, sent fierce storms scattering the Greek fleet. Many heroes faced great hardships, none more so than Odysseus, whose journey home would last another 10 long and difficult years. Odysseus's travels became legendary. After drifting through storms, Odysseus and his crew first reached the mysterious island of the Lotus Eaters. There, Odysseus's men tasted the strange lotus fruit, which caused them to forget their homes, their families, and their desire to return to Ithaca. Determined to save his crew, Odysseus had to drag them forcibly back to their ship, tying them down to prevent them from returning to the land of dreams. Yet their hardships continued. Odysseus and his crew eventually arrived at the beautiful yet dangerous island ruled by the enchantress Circe, daughter of Helios. On arrival, Circe invited the men into her luxurious palace, offering them food and drink. But her kindness concealed dark magic. With a simple touch of her wand, she turned Odysseus's crew into pigs, leaving them imprisoned in pens, their humanity erased. Only one man had remained cautious, returning to warn Odysseus. Determined to rescue his men, Odysseus was aided by Hermes, the messenger god, who gave him a magical herb called moly, protecting him from Circe's enchantments. Boldly confronting Circe, Odysseus forced her to swear an oath to the gods that she would harm neither him nor his men. Impressed by Odysseus's bravery and intelligence, Circe restored his crew to human form. Odysseus and his crew stayed for a year in Circe's palace, recovering their strength and spirits, before setting out again, guided by Circe's wisdom. Before continuing his journey home, Circe instructed Odysseus that he must seek guidance from the underworld. Journeying into Hades, the realm of the dead, Odysseus bravely faced countless spirits of fallen warriors and loved ones. There, he met the blind prophet Tiresias, whose wisdom guided him safely onward. Tiresias warned him of the deadly dangers ahead, especially cautioning against harming the sacred cattle of Helios. He also foretold Odysseus's eventual safe return to Ithaca, though hardship still awaited. Returning from the underworld, Odysseus and his crew faced their next deadly challenge, the enchanting yet deadly songs of the sirens. Circe had warned him of these creatures, whose voices drew sailors irresistibly toward jagged rocks and certain death. Remembering Circe's advice, Odysseus carefully plugged his men's ears with beeswax. Yet he longed to hear the sirens' beautiful but dangerous song for himself. Thus, he ordered his men to tie him firmly to the mast and never release him, no matter how he begged. As their ship passed the rocky islands, the sirens sang sweetly, promising knowledge, power, and infinite pleasure. Odysseus struggled, begged, and pleaded desperately, but his loyal men only tied him tighter, sailing safely past the deadly lure, unharmed. Next, their voyage took them between two terrifying obstacles. On one side was Scylla, a monstrous creature with 6 vicious heads perched high above the water, who snatched sailors right from their ships. On the opposite side churned Charybdis, a powerful ship-swallowing whirlpool. Odysseus chose Scylla, knowing that losing a few sailors was preferable to losing his entire ship. Tragically, as they sailed carefully past, Scylla swiftly seized 6 brave crewmen, dragging them to their deaths, as the others watched helplessly, stricken with grief. Heartbroken, but determined, Odysseus pressed onward. Eventually exhausted and hungry, Odysseus's crew reached the island of Helios, the powerful sun god, home to sacred cattle that were never to be harmed. Odysseus had warned his crew repeatedly, urging them to avoid angering Helios, but fierce storms trapped them on the island, their supplies dwindled, and desperation set in. Despite Odysseus's warnings, his starving men slaughtered some of the sacred cattle, feasting recklessly. Furious, Helios appealed directly to Zeus, demanding justice for this great disrespect. Zeus responded swiftly and violently, striking the ship with a powerful storm, destroying it completely. Odysseus alone survived, clinging desperately to the shattered wreckage, adrift upon the endless sea. Washed ashore on the island of Calypso, a beautiful goddess, Odysseus was warmly welcomed at first, but soon found himself trapped. Calypso fell deeply in love with Odysseus, offering him immortality and eternal happiness if he stayed. Though her offer was tempting, Odysseus's heart longed only for Ithaca, his home, and his faithful wife, Penelope. For 7 lonely years, Odysseus remained Calypso's captive, gazing across the sea, dreaming of home. Finally, moved by Athena's pleas, Zeus ordered Calypso to release him. Calypso reluctantly helped him build a raft and provided supplies, finally freeing him on his final journey home. After a long, lonely voyage, Odysseus finally reached his home island of Ithaca, but his struggles weren't over. In his absence, arrogant suitors had swarmed his palace, greedily feasting upon his wealth and pursuing his loyal wife, Penelope. For years, Penelope had cleverly delayed choosing among them, weaving and secretly unraveling a burial shroud each night, buying time while she awaited Odysseus's return. Disguised as an old beggar with Athena's help, Odysseus quietly plotted his revenge. He secretly reunited with his son, Telemachus, now grown into a strong young man. Together, they carefully planned the suitors' defeat. Penelope finally proposed a contest, promising to marry the man who could string Odysseus's mighty bow and shoot an arrow perfectly through 12 aligned axe handles. None of the arrogant suitors could even string the powerful bow, mocking the old beggar who stepped forward to try. Yet Odysseus, still disguised, effortlessly strung his familiar bow, firing a perfect shot through every axe handle. The suitors watched in stunned silence as he cast off his disguise, revealing himself as the true king returned. Alongside Telemachus and his loyal servants, Odysseus defeated every suitor, reclaiming his palace and family at last. At long last, after 2 decades away, Odysseus reunited with Penelope, who tested him one final time to confirm his true identity. After passing her test, they embraced with tears of joy, finally reunited in love and peace. Odysseus was home, and his journey was complete. These extraordinary adventures, Odysseus's cunning escapes, battles with monsters, and the trials of gods and men became legendary. His struggles, courage, cleverness, and unbreakable determination echoed down through generations, stories told again and again around countless campfires. Alongside Achilles' wrath, Hector's bravery, and the heroes of Troy, Odysseus' Odyssey remained among Greece's greatest and most enduring legends. One of the most beloved tales of ancient Greece was that of Eros and Psyche, a love story so powerful it even moved the hearts of the gods. Psyche was a mortal princess, known everywhere for her unmatched beauty. She was so stunning that travelers from faraway lands journeyed just to catch a glimpse of her face. Eventually, word spread that Psyche was more beautiful than Aphrodite herself, goddess of love and beauty. Temples meant for Aphrodite stood empty as people now worshipped Psyche's mortal charm. Aphrodite, hurt and angry by this neglect, grew jealous. Determined to punish the girl, she called upon her son, Eros, the god whose arrows could make anyone fall deeply in love. Aphrodite demanded that Eros pierce Psyche's heart with an arrow so she'd fall in love with the most hideous creature imaginable. Eros obeyed his mother and flew silently to Psyche's chamber at night. But as he approached her sleeping figure, illuminated softly by moonlight, he paused. Psyche was even more beautiful than he'd heard, her face gentle and serene. His hands shook, and by accident he pricked himself with his own arrow. In that instant, Eros fell hopelessly in love with Psyche. Realizing he could never harm her, he flew away, leaving her untouched but unable to forget her. Meanwhile, Psyche's family worried that no man would dare marry someone so perfect. They consulted an oracle, who warned them Psyche's destiny was to wed a husband who was neither human nor god, but a creature feared by all. Heartbroken, her parents led her to a distant cliff and left her, believing they had no choice but to let fate take its course. Yet Psyche was gently lifted by the west wind, Zephyrus, and carried safely to a hidden valley filled with gardens and flowers. There, she discovered a magnificent palace of gold and jewels, more beautiful than anything she'd imagined. Inside, invisible servants waited on her every need. That night, Psyche met her mysterious husband for the first time. In the darkness, she couldn't see him, but his gentle voice calmed her fears. Night after night, he visited her, speaking words of comfort and love. Though Psyche couldn't see his face, she fell deeply in love with this hidden companion. However, Psyche soon grew lonely and asked to see her sisters. When they visited and saw the beautiful palace, jealousy filled their hearts. They planted doubts in Psyche's mind, suggesting her husband must be a monster hiding in the dark, too terrifying to show his face. Psyche's curiosity turned to worry and then fear. Determined to know the truth, Psyche waited until her husband was sleeping one night. Holding an oil lamp, she carefully shined its light onto his face, ready to face whatever monster lay beside her. But she gasped in surprise. Instead of a monster, her husband was the incredibly handsome god Eros himself. In shock, Psyche accidentally spilled hot oil on his shoulder. Eros awoke, betrayed and heartbroken. Without a word, he flew away, leaving Psyche alone and devastated. Desperate to win Eros back, Psyche searched for Aphrodite, begging for forgiveness. But Aphrodite, still bitter, decided Psyche had to earn her mercy. She set impossible tasks for the girl, each meant to break her spirit. First, Psyche had to sort a huge pile of tiny grains, an impossible job for anyone. Luckily, kind ants took pity on her, quietly sorting the grains while Psyche slept. Next, Aphrodite ordered her to collect golden fleece from vicious sheep that no human could approach. Psyche stood crying by the river until some whispering reeds advised her to gather wool caught on nearby thorn bushes, safely avoiding the sheep. Then Aphrodite demanded water from a dangerous waterfall connected to the river Styx, guarded by fierce dragons. Psyche nearly gave up, but Zeus himself sent his eagle to gather the water for her. Finally, Psyche had to go to the underworld itself to ask Persephone for a box filled with beauty. Psyche bravely made the journey, guided by advice from spirits along the way. But as she returned, curiosity overcame her, and she opened the box, falling instantly into a deep, death-like sleep. Far away, Eros sensed Psyche was in trouble. His heart still filled with love, he flew swiftly to her side, gently waking her with a tender kiss. Seeing their pure love, Zeus himself intervened. He granted Psyche immortality by giving her ambrosia, the food of the gods, and welcomed her to live forever on Mount Olympus. At last, Psyche and Eros were reunited, their love stronger than ever. The gods celebrated their reunion, and from that day on, the story of Eros and Psyche lived on as a gentle reminder that true love could overcome any obstacle, even the jealousy of gods. Yet not all love stories ended in joy. Consider the heartbreaking tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, a story passed down through generations to remind everyone of love's incredible power and tragic fragility. Orpheus wasn't just any musician. He was the greatest ever known in Greece, born from Calliope, the muse of poetry, and a mortal king from Thrace. From a young age, he played his lyre so beautifully that it seemed as if the world itself would pause to listen. His melodies were gentle and powerful enough to charm birds from the sky, calm wild animals, and even silence the rushing streams. People came from far and wide just to hear him play, convinced his music was a gift from the gods themselves. Eurydice was a beautiful young woman, whose heart was as gentle as Orpheus's music. When Orpheus first saw her, he knew instantly he would never love anyone else. Eurydice felt the same, and it wasn't long before they married, their wedding day a joyful celebration filled with song and laughter. Everyone who attended smiled warmly, certain that Orpheus and Eurydice would enjoy a lifetime of happiness together. But fate can be cruel. Soon after their wedding, Eurydice was walking with her friends in a peaceful meadow, picking flowers and laughing softly. Without warning, a hidden snake bit her heel, injecting its deadly venom. In moments, Eurydice's laughter faded, replaced by silence as she sank to the ground. Her friends ran to her side, but it was too late. News of Eurydice's tragic death spread quickly, plunging the village into sorrow, and no one grieved more deeply than Orpheus. Orpheus was utterly heartbroken. Without Eurydice, nothing in the world made sense. He refused to play his music, and silence filled the air. Birds no longer sang, rivers no longer flowed joyfully, and even the wind seemed to stop whispering through the trees. Unable to bear his grief, Orpheus decided to do what no mortal had ever dared. He would journey to the underworld itself to bring Eurydice back. With only his golden lyre in hand, Orpheus bravely descended into the darkness, determined to reclaim the woman he loved. He crossed the river Styx and moved carefully past Cerberus, the fearsome three-headed dog guarding the gates of the underworld. Normally fierce and watchful, Cerberus fell silent, lulled by Orpheus's soft, sorrowful music. As Orpheus ventured further, every shadowy soul and spirit paused to listen, forgetting their sadness for a moment, enchanted by the sweetness of his melodies. At last, Orpheus reached the throne room of Hades, king of the underworld, and his queen, Persephone. The room was dark and solemn, and the two rulers watched him closely, their faces stern and serious. Gathering all his courage, Orpheus stepped forward and began to play his lyre. Music filled the halls of the underworld, echoing gently and powerfully, carrying Orpheus's heartbreak, longing, and undying love. For the first time ever, tears softened the eyes of Hades, and even Persephone wept quietly at the sound. Moved deeply by Orpheus's music and love, Hades agreed to grant his request, something he had never done before. Eurydice's soul could return to the living world, but on one strict condition. Orpheus must lead the way out of the underworld, and Eurydice would follow silently behind him. Orpheus was forbidden to turn around, even for a single glance, until they had both reached the surface and stood safely in the sunlight. Only then could he finally see her face again. If he broke this condition, even for an instant, Eurydice would vanish back into the darkness forever. Orpheus agreed, and hope filled his heart again. Carefully, slowly, he started walking back toward the world above, Eurydice following silently behind him through the shadowy passageways. With every step, Orpheus strained to hear her footsteps, desperate to know she was truly there. As they neared the surface, a faint, warm glow of sunlight appeared ahead, signaling freedom and joy. But doubt suddenly filled Orpheus's mind. Was Eurydice really there, or had he been tricked? Overwhelmed by fear and longing, he turned around for one brief moment, desperate for reassurance. In that instant, their eyes met, filled with both love and sorrow. Eurydice whispered his name softly, but before he could reach out, her spirit began to fade, slipping gently back into the shadows. Orpheus cried out, trying desperately to grasp her hand, but it was too late. Eurydice vanished into the darkness, lost to him forever. Devastated, Orpheus returned to the world above, but his heart remained trapped in the underworld with Eurydice. From that day forward, he wandered alone, his music filled with such sadness and longing that even the trees and rivers wept at his songs. Eventually, at the end of his life, Orpheus's spirit journeyed willingly back to the underworld. There, at last, he found Eurydice, and they embraced, never to be separated again. Together, they remained side by side, walking quietly through the shadowy meadows of the afterlife, their love finally unbroken and eternal. The Trojan War itself had begun with love, a love that sparked endless tragedy. Helen and Paris were bound together by Aphrodite's irresistible magic, a union that set kingdoms ablaze and changed the fate of Greece forever. It started with a fateful decision. Paris, a young prince from Troy, was asked to judge a beauty contest among three powerful goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Each goddess offered him tempting rewards, but it was Aphrodite who promised him the most irresistible prize, the love of the world's most beautiful woman. Paris couldn't resist and awarded her the golden apple. That woman was Helen, Queen of Sparta, whose legendary beauty had already captured countless hearts. When Paris visited Sparta, Aphrodite fulfilled her promise, filling Helen's heart with overwhelming passion for the young prince. Unable to fight the goddess's powerful spell, Helen willingly left behind her husband Menelaus, the king of Sparta, and sailed away with Paris to Troy. When Menelaus discovered Helen gone, his grief quickly turned to rage. Determined to reclaim his queen and restore his honor, he called upon his brother, Agamemnon, and all the mighty kings of Greece. Together, they gathered a great army, and thousands of ships set sail toward Troy. Thus, love's sweet beginnings led quickly into a brutal, long-lasting war. A war that would consume heroes, kingdoms, and countless lives. Paris and Helen lived in a fragile dream within Troy's walls, their love overshadowed by war and tragedy. Even as their passion deepened, Helen was plagued by guilt and sorrow. She often stood upon Troy's walls, looking out over the vast Greek army below, knowing every warrior fought because of her. Nights became difficult as memories haunted her dreams, and her love for Paris became a bittersweet comfort, wonderful yet painful. Paris himself, though deeply devoted to Helen, often struggled under the heavy weight of their union. Troy's people began to see him as the cause of their suffering, blaming his impulsive choice for their hardships and losses. Yet despite criticism and doubt, Paris stayed true, refusing to abandon the woman he loved, even when despair threatened to overwhelm them. Their bond endured through the chaos of battle, until one tragic day, Paris was struck by a poisoned arrow shot by the Greek hero Philoctetes. As Paris lay dying, Helen stayed by his side, her heart breaking as she whispered gentle words, begging him not to leave her. When Paris finally passed away, Helen's grief was overwhelming, Troy's burning walls and shattered gates seemed insignificant compared to the emptiness in her heart. After Troy finally fell, Menelaus stormed into the ruined city, prepared to confront his lost wife. When he finally stood before Helen, he raised his sword, ready to strike, but as he looked into her eyes, the love he still felt overcame his anger. Instead of harming her, he embraced her, silently forgiving all the pain and loss their love had caused. Together, they sailed back to Sparta, but their love was never the same, scarred deeply by the memories of war, loss, and regret. Yet perhaps no love story was more tragic or enduring than that of Pyramus and Thisbe, two young lovers whose passion inspired stories and legends for generations. They lived in the city of Babylon, neighbors whose houses were separated by nothing but a thin wall. Through a tiny crack in this wall, they exchanged whispers, secrets, and dreams, falling deeply in love without ever touching or even clearly seeing each other's faces. Their parents, bitter rivals, forbid them from meeting openly, making their love a forbidden, secret thing. Unable to bear their separation any longer, Pyramus and Thisbe devised a daring plan to run away together. They decided to meet late at night beneath a large mulberry tree outside the city walls. As darkness fell, Thisbe slipped quietly from her home, reaching their meeting spot first, her heart racing with excitement and fear. While she waited under the tree, the shadows moved, and suddenly a lioness appeared from the darkness, her jaws stained with blood from a recent kill. Terrified, Thisbe fled to a nearby cave, but as she ran, she dropped her veil. The lioness sniffed the veil, tearing it with her bloody teeth before leaving. Moments later, Pyramus arrived at the mulberry tree. Finding the torn, blood-stained veil, he felt his heart sink. Certain that Thisbe had been killed, despair and guilt overwhelmed him. In grief-stricken agony, Pyramus drew his sword, plunging it into his heart beneath the mulberry tree, convinced he could not live without his love. Thisbe, still trembling from fear, carefully emerged from her hiding spot and returned to their meeting place. There, under the pale moonlight, she discovered Pyramus lying on the ground, dying, his blood staining the roots of the mulberry tree. She knelt beside him, crying out in sorrow, gently holding him as his life slipped away. In her overwhelming grief, Thisbe took the same sword and chose to join Pyramus in death rather than face life alone. As she breathed her last, their blood mingled and seeped into the earth, forever staining the mulberry fruits from white to a deep, tragic red, an eternal reminder of their love, loss, and heartbreaking sacrifice. These powerful tales of love and loss touched all who heard them. Eros and Psyche showed love's resilience. Orpheus and Eurydice revealed the unbearable pain of loss. Helen and Paris embodied love's destructive power, while Pyramus and Thisbe's fate taught the painful consequences of misunderstanding and forbidden desire. Now let's journey deeper into the mysterious and shadowy realm known to the ancient Greeks as the underworld, a hidden kingdom deep beneath the earth, ruled by the solemn and shadowy god, Hades, alongside his gentle yet distant queen, Persephone. To the Greeks, this was no distant paradise or unreachable place. It was a real, physical realm beneath their feet, accessible to only a chosen few, and dreaded by most. Hades himself was unlike any other Olympian god. He was quiet, reserved, and solemn, often depicted as a dark, bearded figure sitting upon an ebony throne. Though feared by mortals who rarely spoke his name aloud, preferring to call him Pluton, meaning giver of wealth, or simply the unseen one, Hades wasn't truly evil. Rather, he was seen as fair, unwavering, and deeply committed to maintaining balance and order in the realm of the dead. Unlike his brother Zeus, who ruled the sky, and Poseidon, who ruled the seas, Hades preferred solitude, rarely visiting Mount Olympus unless specifically summoned. His world was one of silence and shadows, and his duties demanded patience and neutrality. He watched over the souls entrusted to his care with quiet authority, making certain each soul found its rightful place in the afterlife. Yet, despite his grim role, he was also seen as a just figure. The Greeks believed he presided over judgment after death, ensuring punishment and reward alike were given fairly, reflecting one's actions in life. Few stories directly involved Hades compared to his siblings, but those few left a powerful mark on Greek mythology. Perhaps the most defining of these was his marriage to Persephone. Captivated by the gentle goddess of spring, Hades sought permission from Zeus to make Persephone his queen. Zeus neither granted nor denied this request openly, and Hades took this silence as approval. Thus, one bright afternoon, as Persephone wandered joyfully through a meadow, the ground trembled violently. Hades emerged swiftly from the earth in his dark chariot, drawn by powerful black horses, and carried the startled goddess into his shadowy realm below. Initially terrified, Persephone slowly came to accept, and even embrace, her role as queen of the underworld. Although the realm she ruled was dark and quiet, Persephone brought a touch of grace, compassion, and gentleness that softened Hades's somber domain. She brought flowers to bloom along the riverbanks of the Styx, offering small comforts to souls who passed through. Their relationship, though complicated and marked by sorrow due to Persephone's periodic absence, was often seen as deep and genuine by the Greeks. Persephone, they believed, had come to love her solemn husband, and her presence beside him brought a quiet comfort and warmth to the cold halls of Hades' palace. The underworld itself was a vast, mysterious landscape. Upon death, a soul's journey began by traveling down winding paths and shadowed tunnels, eventually arriving at the banks of the river Styx. This river was more than just a boundary. It was a solemn promise. The gods themselves swore sacred oaths upon the Styx, for its waters were imbued with magical properties, ensuring that any promise sworn upon it could never be broken. Waiting at the Styx's edge was Chiron, the grim ferryman who guided souls silently across the dark waters. Souls unable to pay the fare, often a small coin placed carefully by loved ones beneath the tongue, wandered the riverbanks in eternal despair. Chiron himself was an imposing figure, depicted as an old stern man cloaked in tattered robes, eyes glowing like dim embers. He offered no sympathy, performing his task with cold efficiency. Once across the river, souls approached the formidable gates guarded by Cerberus, the monstrous hound with 3 snarling heads, eyes burning with fiery vigilance. Cerberus's role was crucial. No living soul was allowed to pass unchallenged, nor was any spirit allowed to return to the mortal world without divine permission. His terrifying presence served as an everlasting warning. The underworld was a final destination, a boundary not easily crossed again. Past Cerberus stretched an expanse filled with mist-covered valleys, shadowy forests, and quiet, sorrowful plains. Here, wandering souls drifted aimlessly, their memories slowly fading, destined to an eternity of quiet contemplation. Among these plains were the asphodel meadows, vast gray fields where ordinary souls, those neither exceptionally good nor evil, spent eternity in quiet neutrality. Yet the Greeks also spoke of brighter and darker realms within Hades' kingdom. For heroic souls and the truly virtuous, the beautiful paradise known as Elysium awaited. Elysium was a place of comfort, rest, and joy, filled with gentle breezes, fragrant flowers, and golden sunlight. Here, heroes like Achilles, Hector, and Heracles rested eternally, free from pain, sorrow, and fear. But for souls who committed terrible deeds against the gods or humanity, the feared Tartarus existed deep beneath even Hades' palace. It was an abyss filled with eternal darkness and unending punishment. Titans and mortals who dared defy or offend the gods suffered here. Famous prisoners included Sisyphus, condemned forever to push a boulder uphill only for it to tumble back down endlessly. Tantalus, forever thirsty and hungry, standing in water that receded whenever he reached down, beneath branches heavy with fruit that withdrew each time he stretched up. and Ixion, bound to an eternally spinning wheel, engulfed in flames. The Greeks also described several strange rivers within this mysterious underworld. Apart from the Styx, the river Lethe was perhaps the most significant. Its waters caused complete forgetfulness, allowing souls to abandon memories of earthly sorrow and regret, and prepare for new lives in some beliefs involving reincarnation. Another river, the Acheron, was known as the river of pain or sorrow, marking the border to the underworld and capturing the tears and anguish of newly arrived souls. Cocytus, the river of lamentation, echoed with eternal cries of grief, while Phlegethon, a river of burning fire, flowed around the edges of Tartarus itself, reinforcing eternal punishment. Beyond rivers and meadows, the underworld also featured special landmarks and mysterious locations. The palace of Hades itself was said to be magnificent yet intimidating, built of dark stone and metals, illuminated by eerie blue flames. Around it grew sacred groves of dark poplars and willows, whispering softly in a perpetual twilight. Nearby was the judgment seat, where three impartial judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, reviewed each soul's earthly deeds, assigning them their eternal place within the underworld's vast landscape. To the Greeks, the underworld was more than just a realm of fear. It was a reflection of life's complexity, morality, and balance. They saw Hades as not evil, but necessary, stern and impartial, ensuring justice and fairness continued beyond life's end. The underworld taught them that life and death were closely intertwined, part of an endless cycle they could never fully understand, yet deeply respected. As our fire softly crackles and the stars watch quietly from above, let's journey deeper into the lesser-known tales from Greek mythology, stories that whisper wisdom rather than shout it, reminding us softly of kindness, humility, and the hidden magic in simple lives. Let's begin with the story of Baucis and Philemon, an elderly couple remembered for their kindness and generosity. They lived long ago in a modest cottage at the edge of a small village, surrounded by fields, trees, and simple country paths. Their home was basic, with wooden walls and a straw-thatched roof. Although they had little material wealth, they were rich in compassion and hospitality. Their days were simple, but fulfilling. Together, they tended their garden, growing vegetables, herbs, and colorful flowers. Each evening, they'd sit by the fire, happy to enjoy each other's company. One afternoon, two travelers arrived at their village, dressed plainly and looking tired from their journey. Unknown to anyone, these visitors were Zeus, king of the gods, and Hermes, the messenger, disguised as ordinary men. They knocked on each villager's door, seeking shelter and food, but every door was shut firmly in their faces. Finally, Zeus and Hermes reached the modest home of Baucis and Philemon. Without hesitation, the elderly couple invited the travelers inside. Philemon placed chairs near the fireplace, while Baucis prepared a meal from what little they had: fresh bread, honey, fruits, and wine mixed with water. She apologized for the simplicity of their offering, but the visitors were grateful for their warmth and generosity. As they talked and shared their meal, Baucis noticed something unusual. No matter how many cups of wine she poured, the jug remained full. She glanced at Philemon, who also saw the miracle. Realizing their guests were no ordinary travelers, the couple felt amazed and humbled. Then Zeus and Hermes revealed themselves in a flash of light. Baucis and Philemon knelt in reverence, awed by the gods' presence. Zeus warmly praised their kindness, but warned them that the villagers would face punishment for their lack of hospitality. A flood would soon wash away the village, but Zeus assured the elderly couple they would be spared. He offered them a wish in return for their generosity. After exchanging a glance, Philemon gently replied, "Let us live together until the end of our days. When the time comes, let us leave this world together, so neither must be left alone." Zeus gladly granted their wish. He instructed them to climb a nearby hill and watch as the floodwaters rose, covering the village. When they turned back, their small cottage had become a beautiful temple. Baucis and Philemon, became caretakers of this temple, warmly welcoming visitors as they always had. Years passed peacefully, until one day, while standing together outside the temple, they began to feel their bodies changing. Their feet took root in the earth, and they gradually transformed. Baucis into a linden tree, and Philemon into an oak. Their branches reached toward each other, intertwined permanently in an embrace. Villagers later visited these two trees, telling stories of how the rustling leaves seemed to whisper reminders of the kindness and generosity that had defined the lives of Baucis and Philemon. Now, shifting to another tale, let's talk about King Midas. Midas ruled over the ancient kingdom of Phrygia, a prosperous region famous for its wealth and fertile lands. Known widely for his fascination with gold, Midas surrounded himself with luxuries, treasures, and lavish comforts. Despite his great riches, his desire for gold and wealth seemed impossible to satisfy, becoming almost an obsession that defined his every thought. One day, Midas's servants discovered an elderly man named Silenus wandering lost near the palace grounds. Silenus was a companion and mentor to Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, joy, and celebrations. Silenus had become separated from Dionysus's traveling group and wandered alone, weary and disoriented. Midas's servants recognized him as a man of importance and immediately brought him to the palace. King Midas greeted Silenus warmly, treating him as a respected guest. For several days, Silenus was given comfortable rooms, fine food, and good wine. Midas himself made sure that Silenus was well cared for and comfortable, aware of his special status as Dionysus's dear friend and advisor. Eventually, Dionysus learned that Silenus had been found and generously cared for by Midas. The god felt deep gratitude toward the Phrygian king for his kindness and hospitality. Dionysus soon arrived at the palace to thank Midas personally and offered him a reward, saying, "You may choose one wish, anything you desire, and I shall grant it." Without hesitation, Midas asked excitedly that everything he touched should instantly turn to pure gold. Dionysus paused, understanding the potential consequences, and urged Midas to reconsider carefully. But Midas was blinded by excitement and refused to listen. Seeing the king's determination, Dionysus sighed gently and granted him his wish, warning quietly that not all gifts were as they appeared. The next morning, Midas eagerly tested his new power. He touched a simple wooden chair, instantly turning it into shining gold. Overjoyed, he ran around the palace gardens, transforming flowers, plants, stones, and even statues into gleaming gold. His initial excitement was boundless, and he felt certain he was the luckiest man alive. But soon enough, the excitement began to fade. When Midas sat down for a meal, reality quickly set in. He lifted a piece of fresh bread to his mouth, but as his lips touched it, the bread became solid gold, impossible to bite. Frustrated and confused, he tried to sip water from a cup, but the moment it touched his lips, the liquid became solid gold as well. Soon, panic set in. Every food and drink turned to useless metal, and Midas realized with dread what he'd done. Before he could fully grasp his predicament, his beloved daughter entered the room, concerned about her father's strange behavior. She ran to comfort him, and in his distress, Midas reached out instinctively to embrace her. Instantly, she became a golden statue, frozen in the same expression of surprise. Now, heartbroken and desperate, Midas recognized the truth. His wish had become a terrible curse. Midas immediately began pleading with Dionysus, praying for forgiveness and a chance to undo this tragedy. Hearing the king's desperate calls, Dionysus reappeared, seeing the regret and anguish clearly etched on Midas's face. Moved by pity and compassion, Dionysus gently instructed Midas to travel to the river Pactolus, flowing gently through the countryside of Phrygia. There, the king was to wash his hands and body in the clear waters to rid himself of the golden touch. Without hesitation, Midas hurried to the riverbank, plunging his hands into the cool water. As he washed himself, the curse lifted, restoring his humanity. He ran back to his palace to find his daughter returned to normal, the curse reversed. From that day forward, the sands of the Pactolus River sparkled gently with tiny flecks of gold, a subtle reminder to all who passed by of King Midas's painful lesson, that life, love, and simple joys are far more precious than gold. Next, let's speak of Chiron, a centaur who stood apart from all others of his kind. In Greek mythology, centaurs were usually portrayed as rough, wild creatures, half human and half horse, known more for their aggressive behavior and love of wine than for kindness or wisdom. But Chiron was different. Born from the union of the Titan Cronus and the nymph Philyra, Chiron inherited a sense of calm and gentleness that none of his fellow centaurs possessed. Unlike most centaurs, who roamed wild forests and caused trouble, Chiron lived quietly on Mount Pelion, in the peaceful hills of Thessaly. He built a home there, a simple cave surrounded by forests and clear mountain streams, where he could study and teach in peace. Chiron was gifted with great wisdom and knowledge, especially skilled in medicine, astronomy, hunting, music, and prophecy. He became known not just as a teacher, but as one of the greatest mentors and guides of ancient Greece. Heroes and kings, gods and goddesses, all respected and admired Chiron for his fairness and intelligence. Many legendary heroes came to Mount Pelion to learn from him. Achilles, who would later become the greatest warrior of Greece, was one of Chiron's favorite students. Under Chiron's watchful eye, young Achilles learned the skills of combat, hunting, and healing. More importantly, Chiron taught Achilles about courage and compassion, lessons the young hero carried for the rest of his life. Chiron also mentored Jason, the famous leader of the Argonauts who sailed in search of the Golden Fleece. He guided Jason in the ways of leadership, showing him how to unite men and inspire loyalty. Perseus, the brave hero who defeated Medusa, was another of his students. Under Chiron's care, Perseus learned to trust in himself and think calmly in moments of danger. But perhaps most famous was Chiron's relationship with Heracles, known to many as Hercules. Heracles, known for his incredible strength, often visited Chiron, seeking advice or training. The centaur always welcomed him warmly, sharing his home and knowledge freely. One day, however, tragedy struck. Heracles had been invited to share a feast with another centaur named Pholus, who had opened a special jug of wine. The scent of the wine attracted other centaurs, who became aggressive and dangerous in their desire to drink it. A fierce battle quickly broke out between Heracles and these unruly centaurs. During the chaos, Heracles fired arrows to protect himself, unaware that one stray arrow had accidentally struck Chiron, who stood some distance away, watching the fight unfold. Tragically, this arrow was dipped in the venom of the deadly Hydra, a poison powerful enough to defeat any creature. Even though Chiron was immortal, the venom caused him unending, unbearable pain. No medicine or herb could ease the agony of this wound. Despite his immense suffering, Chiron remained patient and dignified. He endured this endless pain quietly for a very long time. Eventually, though, a rare chance to ease his torment appeared. At that time, Prometheus, the Titan who had given humans fire, was suffering terribly as punishment from Zeus. Prometheus had been chained to a mountain where an eagle arrived daily to torment him. Chiron, knowing well what endless pain felt like, deeply sympathized with Prometheus's plight. With compassion guiding him, Chiron approached Zeus and offered to trade his own immortality for the release of Prometheus. Zeus, impressed and moved by the centaur's unselfish choice, accepted this offer. Prometheus was set free, and Chiron's pain was finally relieved. To honor Chiron's noble sacrifice and kindness, Zeus placed the centaur among the stars, creating the constellation we know today as Sagittarius. And so, Chiron found a new kind of immortality, shining quietly in the night sky, guiding travelers, hunters, and heroes who gaze upward. Finally, let's recall the bittersweet tale of Echo and Narcissus, a story from ancient Greek mythology that warns of the dangers of pride and vanity, but also captures the sadness of unrequited love. Echo was a spirited young nymph who lived in the lush forests and mountainsides. She was cheerful, outgoing, and especially known for her lively chatter. Echo loved to talk and tell stories, often amusing her friends with her endless conversation. Her voice was pleasant and musical, admired by those who heard it. However, Echo's gift for speech ultimately caused her trouble. Zeus, the king of the gods, often visited the forests and mountains, spending time with the various nymphs who lived there. His wife Hera became suspicious of his frequent disappearances and decided to investigate. When Hera approached, Echo, always eager to please, would entertain the goddess with lengthy conversations, giving Zeus time to slip away unnoticed. When Hera finally realized that Echo's conversations were merely distractions designed to help Zeus escape, she was furious. She decided Echo needed to be punished. With a simple yet harsh decree, Hera took away Echo's ability to speak freely, allowing her only to repeat the last few words that someone else had said. Echo was deeply saddened by this punishment. No longer able to speak her own thoughts or feelings, she withdrew into herself. She spent her days quietly wandering alone through the woods and mountains, avoiding contact with others. Her once joyful life became one of loneliness and silence. One day, as Echo wandered quietly through the forest, she caught sight of a young man named Narcissus. Narcissus was exceptionally handsome, admired by both men and women everywhere he went. His striking appearance attracted many admirers who hoped to win his affection. Yet Narcissus was not interested in anyone else, believing he was above ordinary people, too perfect and special for common affection. Echo immediately became enchanted by Narcissus. She watched him from afar, wanting so badly to approach him, yet knowing she couldn't speak first. One afternoon, as Narcissus walked alone through the woods, he sensed he was being watched. Curious, he called out, "Is someone there?" Echo, hiding behind the trees, could only respond softly, repeating, "Someone there." Narcissus frowned, confused, and called again, "Come closer." Echo eagerly stepped out, repeating happily, "Come closer." But when Narcissus saw Echo, he immediately turned cold and dismissive. He had no interest in Echo's shy but hopeful affection. He cruelly told her, "Leave me alone. I will never love you." Echo felt her heart break. She quietly repeated his harsh words, "Never love you," as she retreated deep into the forest. From that day onward, she hid in solitude, fading away until nothing but her faint voice remained, echoing softly through the woods, mountains, and caves whenever someone spoke. As for Narcissus, he moved on, indifferent to Echo's sorrow, still convinced that no one was worthy of his love. One day, during another solitary walk, Narcissus found himself thirsty and stopped beside a clear, quiet pool deep within the forest. He knelt to drink, but stopped abruptly when he saw his reflection for the first time. Narcissus was completely captivated, instantly falling in love with the beautiful face staring back at him. Not realizing this lovely image was simply himself, he gazed endlessly, lost in admiration. Day after day, Narcissus remained by the pool, unwilling to leave the beauty he saw reflected in the water. He ignored food, rest, and the world around him, totally consumed by his obsession. Each time he reached out to embrace the reflection, the image vanished beneath ripples. Yet he continued trying desperately, hoping he could somehow grasp this elusive beauty. Eventually, weakened by hunger, thirst, and sadness, Narcissus slowly wasted away beside the pool, longing hopelessly for a love he could never hold. As he finally breathed his last, the nymphs and creatures of the forest mourned his loss, feeling sorrow that such beauty had caused such sadness. In the spot where Narcissus died, a delicate flower sprang forth, blooming in gentle shades of white and gold. Today, we still call this flower the Narcissus, or daffodil, and it continues to bow its petals toward its reflection, forever remembering Narcissus's tragic end. As for Echo, though she never regained her voice or physical form, her quiet echoes remain in the forests and mountains, softly repeating the words of travelers and hikers. Her presence serves as a subtle, enduring reminder of the sorrow caused by unreturned love, pride, and vanity, and the importance of kindness toward others. These quieter stories, shared softly beneath the stars, carry messages of humility, compassion, and quiet strength. Tales like these may not boast epic battles or powerful gods, yet their lessons linger gently, reminding us that even in small, simple moments, magic, wisdom, and beauty can quietly appear. And as we share them tonight, we become part of an endless circle, retelling stories whispered long ago by those who came before us and carried gently forward for generations yet to come. As we reach the end of our long, fascinating journey through Greek mythology, let's take a moment to consider something truly special about these stories. Why, thousands of years after they were first whispered around ancient fires, do they still capture our hearts and minds so completely? What is it about these ancient myths that continues to feel so powerful and deeply human, no matter how much time passes? The answer, in part, lies in their extraordinary ability to reflect what it means to be human. These stories, though set in worlds of gods, heroes, monsters, and miracles, are deeply familiar. They touch on timeless truths about love and loss, courage and fear, pride and humility, feelings and experiences we all recognize and understand. Think about the pride of Achilles, the compassion of Prometheus, or the courage of Perseus. These aren't simply distant ancient figures. They represent parts of ourselves, mirrors that reflect our own strengths and weaknesses, our dreams and disappointments. Mythology also allows us to explore life's deepest mysteries, offering comforting explanations and beautiful stories about where we come from, why we exist, and what happens when our time here ends. These myths remind us gently that humans have always sought answers to these questions, just as we still do today. They tell us that we're part of something far bigger and more mysterious than ourselves, encouraging us to face life's uncertainties with courage, hope, and humility. In a sense, these myths have never truly aged. Yes, their details might change, but at their heart, they're as relevant today as when they were first told around campfires thousands of years ago. They remind us that no matter how advanced our world becomes, our essential nature, the way we love, fear, dream, and struggle, hasn't changed much at all. And perhaps most importantly, these myths help us feel connected. As you listened, maybe you imagined yourself sitting alongside ancient Greek storytellers, feeling the warmth of a fire on your skin, hearing these timeless tales. It's a beautiful thought, that across thousands of years, across cultures and continents, stories still have the power to bring us together, helping us remember that, at our core, we're not so different after all. So, next time you look up at the stars or gather around a fire, think of these stories. Remember brave Perseus confronting Medusa, thoughtful Prometheus stealing fire, Orpheus risking everything for love. These myths aren't just ancient stories, they're living mirrors, gently reflecting who we are and who we might become. Now, we've spent quite some time exploring this vast, beautiful world of Greek mythology together. And whether you've been closely following or quietly listening in the background, I genuinely hope you enjoyed the journey. Let me know below which myth or character stood out to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've enjoyed our storytelling today, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our next journey into mythology, history, or mystery. Thanks for spending your time here. And until next time, stay curious and stay safe.